Chapter 1531. With the 9 provinces' empire's strength, attacking the Forgotten City would be a piece of cake. Even if there were players resisting the Forgotten City, it would only be a matter of time before it was destroyed. What's more, all of the resisting players had run away. With a wave of siege ladders, the Forgotten City's gates were destroyed, and the tens of thousands of 9 provinces' empire's players effortlessly conquered the Forgotten City. This was the true strength of a top-tier guild. Don't think that just because the Blood Alliance was suppressed by Chuanjin that they were not strong enough. In terms of conquering cities, having more people and money was the most useful. As the announcement that the 9 provinces' empire had conquered the Forgotten City spread throughout the entire server, the players in the game were sent into an uproar. The chatter on the forums instantly died down, and what followed was a chorus of praises, as if it was someone else who had been cursing the 9 provinces' empire. At that moment, the ones who were the most dumbfounded were the 5 Lakes 4 Seas. Did the 5 Lakes 4 Seas want to conquer the Forgotten City? Of course they wanted to. However, they had no reason to do so, so they had not done anything. Now that they had a reason, the 5 Lakes 4 Seas felt a bit guilty. In the game, there was no such thing as giving someone else a free hand. The 5 Lakes 4 Seas had thought that the Forgotten City had purposefully started this attack, and that the Forgotten City's players had long since made preparations. Moreover, it was possible that someone had caused trouble for them. However, conquering the Forgotten City had gone so smoothly, making Zhao Fu feel quite confused. Just what kind of saint had given him such an opportunity for no reason? Of course, as for the saints that the 5 Lakes 4 Seas were talking about, they had already leisurely walked out of the Forgotten City. Looking at the Chinese flag on the Forgotten City's walls, Wang Yu felt incredibly emotional as he asked Meng Shi, "You knew that this would happen? What did you think?" Meng Shi asked as she raised her eyebrows. "Me?" Wang Yu awkwardly laughed as he said, "I thought that I would find some people to cause trouble in the Forgotten City and then run away. I never thought that you would be so ruthless and destroy a city." "Huh?" Meng Shi smiled as she said, "If I said that I would obtain what I wanted no matter what, would you think that I was very scary?" "Scary?" Wang Yu shook his head and said with a smile, "That's impossible. I basically killed all the things that I think are scary." Meng Shi, "All right, you're the best." Although the task this time was not difficult, it was very troublesome. Relatively speaking, it took a lot of time. When Wang Yu and Meng Shi returned to Yuhuicheng, it was already afternoon. In Yuhuicheng, the sun was still setting. Under the setting sun, Wang Yu and Meng Shi, a single man and a single woman, entered a dark alley. If this kind of behavior was seen by a shady person, he would definitely have dark thoughts in his heart. Seeing this, everyone should know whether you're a shady person or not. If you are as upright as me, leave a comment. In the alley, Old Hermit had been waiting for a long time. Receiving the obsidian stone, Old Man Hermit casually waved his hand, and Meng Shi won several times in a row. This girl's level was low, so it was reasonable that doing this task would give her more experience. Then, Old Hermit gave Meng Shi a set of equipment and a few skill books. At the side, Wang Yu was filled with envy. Damn, ever since Wang Yu entered the city, he had been the only one favored by Old Hermit. He had risked his life for him so many times, and he wanted to take back the reward that he had received. Meng Shi had only done a task for him, yet she had given him a set of equipment and skill books. This was really infuriating. What kind of task is this? You can even give a set of equipment? Wang Yu asked curiously. It's a level 20 class change quest. Didn't you give it back then? Meng Shi asked in surprise. Speaking of the level 20 class change quest, Wang Yu became even more depressed. Damn, back then, Wang Yu had traveled all over the Heroes continent, killed all the powerful bosses, and offended all the powerful NPCs. In the end, apart from successfully changing his class, he didn't even get a fart. All he got was a mask, and he had used equipment to exchange for Yangna's. Looking at Meng Shi again, Wang Yu suddenly had the thought of beating up Old Hermit. Hee. Unexpectedly, Old Hermit seemed to have seen through Wang Yu's thoughts and said with a smile, "Little Smash, do you want to beat me up?" "Yeah." Wang Yu nodded. If it was just a simple favor, Wang Yu would have tolerated it. However, With this comparison, no matter how good Wang Yu's mentality was, he couldn't help but feel a little uncomfortable. Ha ha ha. Old Hermit laughed and said, "This is all Lord Martial God's test for you, because in this world, only you can inherit his last wish." Lord Martial God often said that when the heavens are about to bestow a great responsibility on a man, he must first tire his muscles and bones. Is that so? Hearing Hermit say this, Wang Yu felt a little better. Of course, Hermit said with a straight face, "I'm a self-disciplined NPC, and I never lie. Do you think you can become Lord Martial God's successor?" Of course. Wang Yu patted his chest and said, "If I can't do it, I'm afraid no one in this world can." As soon as Wang Yu finished speaking, a system notification suddenly made Wang Yu freeze on the spot. System notification: you have accepted the SS rank quest, The Path of Martial God. Quest introduction: when Martial God descended on this land, humans were ruled by various gods. Martial God said, "Humans are born free, and there is no need for gods in this world." In 10 years, Martial God slayed dragons, gods, and demons, and all the strong in the world agreed with these words. In the era of darkness, the world was filled with strife, and the departure of Martial God caused humans to lose their faith once more. Only someone as strong as Martial God can inspire humans to regain their former dignity. Quest details: collect Dragon Scale 0 to 1, Flame Heart 1/1, Glory of God 0 to 1, Obsidian Stone 0 to 1. Damn! Seeing this quest notification, Wang Yu immediately realized that he had fallen for Hermit's trick again. Damn it, this old man knows that Wang Yu has a problem with him, so he has learned to give out quests in secret. S-rank quests were already considered top-tier quests in the quest system of Rebirth. As for SS-rank quests, they were the legendary God-rank quests. In other words, they were the so-called chain quests that players could not complete. They were usually made up of 2 or more S-rank quests. Everyone knew about S-rank quests. Since the start of the game, the number of S-rank quests that were known to have been completed could be counted on one hand. The difficulty of this S-rank quest chain could be imagined. Was it easy to choose a hero class? It was nothing more than having 2 more attribute points than other classes, but this class change quest was really not for humans. Chapter 1532. You've become bad. Wang Yu gave Hermit the middle finger. Serves you right for not being able to find a wife. You're too kind. Hermit grinned. His expression was extremely wretched. Can I cancel this mission? Although he knew it was impossible, Wang Yu still asked. S-rank missions were already enough to give people headaches. Wouldn't S-rank mission chains torment people to death? S-rank missions were not as difficult as close-range combat. What was worse was that it was extremely brain-burning. Although Wang Yu liked to challenge himself, he did not like to suffer. You can cancel it. Hermit smirked, but I'll have to take back your occupation as a martial arts expert. I knew you'd do this. Hearing Hermit's words, Wang Yu could not help but give him the middle finger again. How long have you been using this trick? Can't you change it to something new? It doesn't matter how many tricks there are, as long as they work. Hee hee. Hermit once again showed his trademark wretched smile. Wang Yu was furious. All right. Hermit smiled and comforted him. Don't worry, I'll give you some benefits this time. Oh, you're that kind? Wang Yu was skeptical. I'm your teacher. Why would I cheat you? Hermit shamelessly placed the obsidian stone in Wang Yu's hand. Here, take it. This is equivalent to me helping you. You just need to get the dragon's reverse scale and glory of God. That's more like it. Wang Yu saw the obsidian stone in Hermit's hand and felt a little better. He smiled and accepted it. But soon, Wang Yu was slightly surprised. What about my reward for this escort mission? Hermit pointed at the obsidian stone in Wang Yu's hand. This is it. Me? Wang Yu was exasperated. Isn't it more convenient for me to just get it? Why do you need me to escort someone else? Because I took the money. Hermit spread his hands and showed a what can you do about it expression. How about I help you this time? Mengshi offered to help when she saw Wang Yu's depressed expression. What good girl. She knew that it was impolite not to reciprocate. Since Wang Yu helped her, she immediately wanted to return the favor. All right. Wang Yu hurriedly waved his hand. I should be able to settle this myself. What a joke for Wang Yu's quest. Even an expert from the Chuanjin sect might not be able to help. Mengshi was only at level 20 and had just changed her job. Wouldn't her help make things worse originally? Wang Yu could have settled this matter on his own, but if he brought Mengshi along, it would probably be impossible. Mengshi was very smart. How could she not guess what Wang Yu was thinking? Seeing that Wang Yu was looking down on her, Mengshi snorted. Then you can play by yourself. Goodbye. After saying that, Mengshi left the alley without looking back. Only Wang Yu and Hermit, who were racking their brains, were left looking at each other. What are you still doing here? Hermit asked. Hee. Wang Yu took out a bag of gold coins and handed it to Hermit. There are no outsiders now. Can you give me a guide? The reason why S-rank missions were difficult was because they left people with no clue where to start. Take Wang Yu's current character, for example. Although he had the obsidian stone and the flame heart, the way to obtain these two materials was completely unrelated. If not for this mission, Wang Yu would not have known that these two materials were related. As for the dragon's reverse scale and the glory of God, it was even more ridiculous. Not to mention that Wang Yu had never seen a god before. Even if there were many dragons in this world, he should at least say something about which dragon's reverse scale he wanted to pluck. Hermit chuckled and took the bag of coins. Then he said with a smile, to be honest, I really don't know about this. Give me back my money. Wang Yu was furious. Don't worry, Hermit quickly said, I don't know, but someone knows. For example, Sir Martial God's old acquaintance. Martial God's old acquaintance? Wang Yu frowned. He has been missing for thousands of years. How many of his old acquaintances are still alive? Well, you'll have to ask yourself. Hermit stretched his back and said, you need to use your brain to play games. How am I supposed to play if I tell you everything? TSK. Wang Yu curled his lips in disdain and left the alley. The quest had no time limit, and there were no clues to speak of. There was only a vague clue. Wang Yu simply threw the quest to the side and ignored it. Who knew if he would be fated to meet the boss one day? Chuanjin's people were busy doing level 60 skill quests. Wang Yu had nothing to do, so he strolled over to Mu Zixian's general store. Mu Zixian's general store was as busy as ever. After all, with Wang Yu and Chuanjin's reputation there, the advertising effect was strong. At this time, not only Yu Huiqing's players, but even players from other main cities had come and lined up in front of the general store. Seeing Wang Yu walk over, Yu Huiqing's players automatically opened up a path. Wang Yu also walked into the store. You're here? Mu Zixian raised her head and looked at Wang Yu. She pointed behind her and said, bring me the dragon-slaying mixture over there. Dragon-slaying mixture? Wang Yu heard this and immediately looked in the direction that Mu Zixian was pointing. He saw a set of potions on the far right side of the shelf. Dragon-slaying mixture, potion. After use, damage against dragon-type monsters increases by 10% for 30 minutes. Cooldown time, 60 minutes, wow. Wang Yu picked up the potion and sighed. There's still this kind of potion? Yes. Mu Zixian said, this is a high-grade potion. I spent a lot of money to buy it from the last auction. In the entire server, only our shop has it. The current Mu Zixian was becoming more and more like a merchant. Amazing, amazing. Wang Yu took the potion and walked to the counter. He asked, who wanted this potion? Me. At this time, an archer with a metal bow on his back stretched out his hand. 50 gold coins. Mu Zixian said from the side. The archer took out a money bag and passed it to Wang Yu. He took the dragon-slaying mixture. After receiving the potion, the archer didn't leave. He looked at Wang Yu and said, you are Iron Ox? Yes. Wang Yu nodded his head. Now Wang Yu was already used to it. Every time he helped here, he would attract a group of players to watch. Wang Yu could understand the players' eagerness to get to know him. Hello, my name is Liao Yuan. The archer introduced himself to Wang Yu. However, just as Liao Yuan finished speaking, the players in the crowd started to get excited. They looked at the archer and exclaimed, a single spark can start a prairie fire? You are the mechanical archer Liao Yuan? Even Wang Yu couldn't help but be stunned. Chapter 1533. Like Wang Yu, Liao Yuan was a rising star in the gaming circle. He He was also a player who made a name for himself after the launch of the brand-new online game, Rebirth. Wang Yu had also heard of this kid's deeds from the Chuanjin sect. It was said that this person was a hidden branch of the archer. His strength was said to have surpassed professional players. Many professional players have been defeated by him. He was worshipped as a god by the archer players. His position was basically the same as Wang Yu's position in the hearts of the grandmasters of combat. The players said that a single spark could start a prairie fire. The archer profession was the most unique among all the professions in Rebirth. After all, in the holographic simulation, the players did not have a keyboard and mouse. Everything was done by the players themselves. As the saying goes, the bow, the knife, the stone steps, the sword. The bow was the most difficult to use among all the cold weapons. In this era, Kung Fu had declined. Naturally, cold weapons had declined as well. As for the archer, there were even fewer people who knew how to use it. Therefore, in Rebirth, the system support was the strongest. Under the system mode, the players basically had a certain level of archery. Therefore, the archer was able to pick up the skill quickly and was very suitable for beginners. However, things like bows and arrows had always been about being able to fire and shoot at will. Naturally, the soul of the archer could not be obtained by relying on the system support. Therefore, although there were many archer players, there were very few experts. Other than Liao Yuan, there were only 3 expert archers that Wang Zheng had seen. As for the other players, most of them did not have the support of the system. Of course, the archer was the profession with the longest range in the game. If the archer profession was played well, it would be quite terrifying. Look at the Grim Reaper's left hand. This kid was still a non-mainstream archer. However, when this guy was angry, even Wang Yu felt a headache. Liao Yuan was an archer, but he was worshipped as a god. His strength was evident. At this time, the players in front of Mu Zixian's grocery store were very excited. There were not many players who could be worshipped as gods. Other than the god of war and the god of magic, there were only 2, Wang Yu and Liao Yuan. At this moment, there were 2 of them standing in front of everyone. One could imagine how the players were feeling. If it were not for Wang Yu's notorious reputation in Yuhuicheng, there would probably be players rushing up to him to ask for his autograph. It's an honor to meet you. Hearing Liao Yuan's name, Wang Yu was slightly startled, and then he stretched out his hand. Same here. Liao Yuan shook Wang Yu's hand and said, I heard that it's possible to see the legendary Iron Ox here. I didn't expect to see him on my first visit. It's really an honor. You're flattering me. Wang Yu smiled modestly. I didn't expect such an expert to visit my store. When experts met experts, the first thing that greeted them was a series of fake pleasantries. Are you 2 done yet? The people behind you are still waiting to buy things. Mu Zixian said impatiently with her forehead full of black lines. Liao Yuan was stunned. He had played the game for so long, but he had never seen such an unreasonable shop owner. Huh. Wang Yu smiled awkwardly. He quickly walked out of the counter and said, My wife, I see. Liao Yuan sighed. I can't believe that the legendary #1 expert in the world is also afraid of someone. This is called respect. Wang Yu explained. Understand. Liao Yuan smiled and walked out of the line with Wang Yu. They talked and laughed as they came to the foot of the wall at the side, as if they were old friends. When experts met, there was always a need to greet each other. Even if they did not know each other, they still had to test each other's strength and see how the other was compared to themselves. Wang Yu naturally did not care about this, but Liao Yuan had the heart of a typical expert. Wang Yu was a person who understood etiquette, so he was embarrassed to not give him face. Brother Iron Ox, don't you need to train? After chatting for a while, Liao Yuan finally threw out the doubt in his heart. As an expert, he naturally understood experts better than anyone else. No one could become an expert easily. Even Wang Yu had only achieved this because he had more than 20 years of martial arts experience. This was even more true for players in the game. In order to maintain their status as experts and not be overtaken by others, experts had to train harder every day. Wang Yu, on the other hand, was leisurely hiding in this corner to accompany his wife to sell things. It was a bit of a waste of time. I'm a bit free today, Wang Yu said truthfully. They used to be a fixed team, but they've been doing skill quests recently, so I can't help much. Oh, is that so? Liao Yuan's eyes lit up. That means Brother Iron Ox isn't busy today. Yeah. Wang Yu nodded, then asked, Are you buying this mixture to slay a dragon? That's right. Liao Yuan smiled. I'm doing a more difficult quest. Brother Iron Ox, do you have time to go together? Well, Wang Yu really did not expect Liao Yuan to be so blunt, asking him for help right away. Although Wang Yu was fine now, he felt stupid to be tricked into helping with a quest, commonly known as Chuanjin thinking sprouts. If he did not agree, wouldn't it seem hypocritical for the two to call each other brothers just now? Huh, Brother Iron Ox, don't worry, Liao Yuan said. I'll thank you very much. Huh, Wang Yu laughed. No need to thank me. I'm not that kind of person. I understand. Liao Yuan smiled, took out a skill book from his bag, and handed it to Wang Yu. Wang Yu took a look and couldn't help but smile. Ultimacy of Strength, rare skill. After learning, greatly increases strength, attack priority, and grab attack. Wang Yu pointed, and the skill book turned into a ray of light that drilled into Wang Yu's body. Then a new skill appeared in Wang Yu's skill bar. Ultimacy of Strength, passive skill. Increases strength by 20%, attack priority by 15%, and grab attack by 15%. Huh. Seeing the skill's attributes, Wang Yu laughed. Brother Liao Yuan, you've spent a lot of money. Not at all. Only Brother Iron Ox can use this skill to its fullest, Liao Yuan said calmly. Indeed, Liao Yuan was right. The most embarrassing thing about Grandmasters of Combat was that their strength was too weak. As a class that mainly focused on controlling grabs, a weak strength would have a low priority. Even with a high priority grab skill, if the opponent's strength was much lower than the opponent's, then it would be difficult to block the opponent's attack. Wang Yu often fought with others, so he knew the importance of judgment. Nowadays, the players' levels were getting higher, and their equipment was getting better. It was no longer the same as in the past, so when Wang Yu fought against strength-type players, he rarely used grab skills. After all, there were only so many grab skills, and it would be embarrassing if he couldn't break through the opponent's priority. Chapter 1534. Grabbing bonuses were generally exclusive to melee professions. Liao Yuan, as an archer, naturally had no use for it, so it was not a loss to give it to Wang Yu. In fact, Liao Yuan had only asked Wang Yu for help on a whim, and the reason was only the thinking of an expert. He just wanted to understand Wang Yu's strength. Some people might say that if he wanted to understand strength, couldn't he just fight? What a joke. If he lost, it would be so embarrassing. From Liao Yuan coming all the way here to buy the dragon-slaying potion, it was not difficult to see that Liao Yuan was a person who never fought unprepared. Such a person naturally would not easily challenge a long-established top expert. Besides, the onlooker sees the game more clearly. Sometimes it was better to see Wang Yu beat people up from afar than a fight in person. Wang Yu was known as the world's #1 expert in rebirth, and it was not a loss to ask such an expert to help with a quest. In that case, can we go? Seeing that Wang Yu was so satisfied with this skill, Liao Yuan asked with a smile. Wait a minute, I'm going to apply for leave. Wang Yu patted his butt and walked in the direction of Mu Zixin. Liao Yuan, he really did not expect the legendary world's #1 expert to look like this. After leaving the alley of the grocery store, Liao Yuan walked directly to the west side of the city. Wang Yu asked curiously, Where are you going? By plane, I have to go to Sky Dragon City. My friend is waiting there, Liao Yuan said. You don't have to take a plane with me. Wang Yu smiled slightly. Really? Liao Yuan followed Wang Yu to the teleportation point doubtfully. Wang Yu gave Liao Yuan permission, and with a flash of light, the two appeared in Sky Dragon City. Liao Yuan saw this and was suddenly confused. At this time, the guard at the teleportation point saw Wang Yu and respectfully saluted, Lord Iron Ox. Lord? This time, Liao Yuan was completely stunned. He asked in surprise, You, a player named Yu Huicheng, are the Lord of Heavenly Dragon City? No, Wang Yu said proudly. I'm 1 level higher than the city lord. Even their city lord has to bow to me. Awesome. Liao Yuan sincerely gave a thumbs up. Where are your teammates? Wang Yu asked after looking around. They're not here, Liao Yuan said. They're all waiting for supplies at the tavern. Let's go. Ah. Wang Yu sighed. You're the captain, yet you're personally buying supplies? Yeah, isn't your team? Liao Yuan retorted. My ass, Wang Yu said angrily. Our Chuanjin captain never pays for anything. Even when we go to the tavern to drink, we have to let others pay for us. So awesome. Liao Yuan was dumbfounded. Is he really that awesome? Or handsome? Trash. He's a bitch. Wang Yu said solemnly. Liao Yuan was confused. The two of them talked along the way and soon arrived at the tavern in Heavenly Dragon City. The players in Heavenly Dragon City thought that Long Outyin had massacred the city and left a group. Most of the players left were high-level players who were busy like dogs. These players usually did not have time to hang out in the tavern. So, the tavern business in Heavenly Dragon City was much worse than that of Yuhuichen. At this time, there was only a table of unattractive female players sitting in the corner of the tavern. Each of them had a glass of juice in front of them, and they were gossiping happily. Ah, your teammates didn't abandon you, right? Wang Yu asked with a smile after looking around for a while. However, at this moment, a clear voice suddenly came from the corner. Brother Liao Yuan, you're back? Yeah. Wang Yu was stunned when he heard the voice. He saw an orc witch doctor standing up from the table of the female players in the corner. Unlike the other green-skinned orcs, this orc had normal skin color. She had pointy ears on her head. It was obvious that she was a cat girl. With her small body and sweet voice, she looked like a loli. Liao Yuan looked serious, but he was actually a lullicon. You really couldn't judge a book by its cover. She's your teammate? Wang Yu asked in surprise. No, Liao Yuan said. They all are. F***CK. This time, it was Wang Yu's turn to be stunned. Oh my, Liao Yuan's table was amazing. Young lolas, mature older women, sexy mature women, mature young women. There was really everything. In online games, female players were always much fewer than male players. Especially with the special holographic simulation mode of Rebirth, it directly kicked out some of the timid female players. So, the ratio of players in the game was extremely unbalanced. Among the 10 players, it was already considered good if there were 3 female players. Liao Yuan, on the other hand, directly gathered such a table full of exquisite goods. Wang Yu was a married man, so he wasn't that sensitive to women, but he couldn't resist the fact that female players were pleasing to the eye. If it was just a fixed party with a stinky man, it would be fine. But those bastards in Chuanjin, they were despicable, wretched, brain-damaged, sinister, and cunning. They had all the shortcomings in one, and none of them had a bottom line. It was infuriating. Thinking of the faces of his teammates, and then looking at Liao Yuan's teammates, Wang Yu couldn't help but let out a long sigh. At this time, Liao Yuan introduced to the ladies, "This is the expert I invited from Yuhuichen. I believe everyone has heard of him." Expert? Who? On the other side of the table, a beautiful assassin girl played with her dagger and asked with a face full of disdain. Obviously, this girl was very confident in her own strength. The word expert obviously didn't have much influence on her. Ironox, Liao Yuan said with a smile. Ironox. Hearing Wang Yu's name, the ladies were stunned. Even the cold assassin girl couldn't help but raise her head to look at Wang Yu. Obviously, they were not unfamiliar with this name either. Liao Yuan pointed at the cat girl and introduced her to Wang Yu. This is the adorable Tong Tong, a witch doctor. Nice to meet you, Brother Ironox. The girl was obedient and sensible. Then he pointed at the tank next to him and said, This is the Fruit Knight, a paladin. Nice to meet you. The Fruit Knight was about the same age as Wang Yu and was the most mature in Liao Yuan's party. Hearing Liao Yuan's introduction, he calmly nodded at Wang Yu. This is Sisterly, an ice mage. Liao Yuan turned his hand and pointed at the mature woman in the corner. Sisterly? She doesn't look that old. Wang Yu touched his chin. Her ID is Sisterly. Sisterly explained. TSK, TSK. Wang Yu sighed. I should have called her Uncle Nyo. And this is? Wang Yu tilted his head and looked at the girl with the dagger. Gorgeous enchantress. The girl introduced herself coldly. She seemed to be a little dissatisfied with Wang Yu's somewhat lecherous, it was actually resentful gaze. Chapter 1535. Oh, that a good name. Wang Yu nodded. Really? Liao Yuan wondered. What's so good about it? Wang Yu whispered. I don't know, I just said it casually. Liao Yuan was speechless. Don't you feel awkward bringing 4 girls with you when you go out? Wang Yu asked curiously. In any case, Wang Yu would feel a little uncomfortable if there were 2 or more girls around her when she went out. Liao Yuan said indifferently, I'll get used to it. Sorry, I'm late. As the two were chatting, a gentle voice came from the entrance of the tavern. Wang Yu looked up and saw a girl walking into the tavern. The girl had an oval face and had the charm of an Oriental woman. Moreover, she was wearing a light green ancient robe with a few light pink flowers embroidered on it. She was holding a paper umbrella in her hand. She was dressed in a completely Chinese style. Seeing this, Wang Yu asked curiously, This is Tian Xiang. Liao Yuan introduced. Our team's cleric. Then he introduced to Tian Xiang. This is Iron Ox. Iron Ox. Tian Xiang ran over excitedly when she heard the name. Guru Iron Ox, it's an honor to meet you. Cleric. Wang Yu extended her hand and shook Tian Xiang's hand. She muttered to herself in bewilderment. Your attire is a little weird. Rebirth was a Western fantasy game. Although there were some Chinese elements in it, they were very hard to notice. Wang Yu's clothes were a bit Chinese, but Grandmaster of Combat was a more Eastern class. As for clerics, that was a Western fantasy class through and through. Tian Xiang's outfit was a bit out of place with a cleric style. What do you know? At this time, the beautiful enchantress curled her lips. You don't even know about fashion, and you call yourself an expert? TCH. Fashion? Wang Yu was startled for a moment, then immediately understood. This kind of thing was something that Rebirth had introduced in order to scam money. This thing basically didn't add any attributes, and even if it did, it would be insignificant. However, the price was ridiculously high. Only female players and some of the more flamboyant male players liked to buy these items. As for the group of male animals from the Quanzhan sect, they couldn't even be bothered to look at them. Even the 2 female players from the Quanzhan sect usually didn't care about these items that didn't add any attributes. When it came to gaming, Wang Yu was a complete newbie. Most of his knowledge came from Chuanjin. Chuanjin's people didn't care about it, so naturally, Wang Yu didn't know much about it. In fact, all the ladies present were wearing fashionable clothes. It was just that Wang Yu's eyesight was poor, and he couldn't tell whether they were wearing clothes or not. It was just that Tian Xiang's clothing was too outrageous, and Wang Yu had some doubts in his heart. Can you do it, Liao Yuan? Seeing Wang Zheng's dull look, the beautiful enchantress asked Liao Yuan suspiciously. Isn't he an expert? How could he not understand such basic things? Don't tell me you've been cheated. Huh? Liao Yuan laughed and said, he's an expert. What he dispels are all high-level things. Of course, he doesn't understand the basics. Che! The beautiful enchantress pouted and turned her head to whisper to the other ladies. Very quickly, the other ladies also cast doubtful looks at Wang Yu. Wang Yu's ears and eyes were sharp. He could even hear the buzzing of a mosquito within a 50-meter radius. Naturally, he could also hear what the ladies were saying. Even if he couldn't hear, Wang Yu's senses could feel the doubtful looks of others. Of course, what kind of person was Wang Yu? He was a grandmaster, and he definitely wouldn't lower himself to the same level as a lady. He calmly said to Liao Yuan, Can we go now? Liao Yuan felt that the situation was getting more and more awkward, so he hurriedly said, Let's go. Let's go. Oomph. The beautiful enchantress coldly snorted at Wang Yu, and then stood up. Seeing that this lady was so hostile towards him, Wang Yu was also very depressed. He had no idea why he was being so hated by a lady. Little did he know, Liao Yuan's team was also very famous. Although they did not participate in the professional league for some reason, they had also fought against many professional experts, and without exception, they had won. Because of this, these ladies were still very confident in their own strength. They didn't think that professional experts were very powerful at all. In their eyes, Wang Yu, the champion of the professional league, was naturally just SOSO. This was a classic case of looking at the sky from the bottom of a well, thinking that after defeating a few second-rate professional experts, they were invincible. Moreover, Liao Yuan's introduction to everyone was that Wang Yu was the #1 expert in the national server. Of course, this provoked the beautiful enchantress, who thought that she was extraordinary. It was reasonable for her to be hostile towards Wang Yu. After all, there were many people who thought that they were the real deal, while others were deceiving the world to gain fame. At this moment, the beautiful enchantress's thoughts were, how can he be the #1 expert if he doesn't even know how to dress? I've defeated so many professional experts. You won't make a difference. Liao Yuan's quest was on Dragon Island. The teleportation point to Dragon Island was in the backyard of the Lord's residence, which was controlled by the Apocalypse. Dragon Island was an area with level 70 to 150 monsters. At this stage of the game, the average level of the players was close to level 60. Wang Yu had heard from Mu Zixian that as early as level 50, there were already many adventurer teams that set their sights on Dragon Island. Because of this, she had spent a lot of money to bury the Dragon Slayer potion shop. Wealth came from danger. Moreover, in the Western fantasy backstory, dragons were creatures that liked to collect treasures. So as long as they cooperated carefully, repaired their equipment, and brought along potions, it would not be difficult to survive in a level 70 monster area. At the very least, they would be able to earn a teleportation fee. The Lord's residence was actually not very big. After long, Ao Hian massacred the city, the residence was rebuilt. At that time, young Master Feng, in order to show off his wealth, specially bought a piece of land and expanded the residence to be very luxurious. Later on, it became Dugu Jiuqiang's fortune. At this moment, the Lord's residence was bustling with players. There were treasure hunting teams everywhere. Around the teleportation point, there were a few Dragon Island players, and they were methodically guarding the teleportation fee. The teleportation fee was neither high nor low, 100 gold coins per person. For normal players, it was definitely not low, but for those treasure hunting teams that made a living by hunting for treasures, it was not considered high. The drop rate of the monsters on Dragon Island was there for all to see. If they did not invest, how could there be a return? Soon, it was Wang Yu's and Liao Yuan's turn. Liao Yuan and the girls paid their gold coins one by one. When it was Wang Yu's turn, Wang Yu pointed at the Yin Yang Fish Guild leader on his chest. When the World Apocalypse players saw this, they were shocked and hurriedly said, "Boss, Iron Ox, please, please." Originally, Chuanjin and Dugu Jiuqiang had an agreement. Chuanjin's people didn't need to pay for teleportation. Moreover, Wang Yu was the true lord of Dragon Island. Who would dare to ask him for money? Yes. Chapter 1536. Pretentious. Seeing Wang Yu enter the teleportation point without paying, Absolute Beauty Enchantress' impression of Wang Yu dropped once again. Does he really think he's some big shot? He's actually using his reputation to get special privileges. What kind of character is that? Absolute Beauty Enchantress could not help but complain in the channel. All right, Liao Yuan quickly said. Old Cow is the Lord of Sky Dragon City. It's only right that he doesn't have to pay. The Lord of Sky Dragon City doesn't have to pay? Why? Absolute Beauty Enchantress looked down on him again. Liao Yuan simply shut his mouth. What was the point of reasoning with this woman? Arrogance and prejudice always went hand in hand. Absolute Beauty Enchantress was an arrogant person, so it was natural for her to be prejudiced against Wang Yu. With a flash of light, the scene in front of the party changed, and they arrived at Dragon Island. Dragon Island was still vast and boundless, but compared to the empty Dragon Island before, it was now much more lively. According to the system's backstory, ever since Wang Yu unsealed Dragon Island, the giant dragons on Dragon Island began to awaken, and it slowly prospered. Now, on Dragon Island, there are monsters all over the mountains and plains, as well as treasure hunting parties that drag monsters all over the place. These monsters all belong to the dragon family. Now, the monster zone that Wang Yu and the others were in was a level 70 monster zone, and the main monsters were dragon whelps and earth dragons. Dragon whelps were the offspring of the dragon family, and were born with level 70 strength. However, they were timid and gentle, and did not attack humans, so they were relatively easy to deal with. Although the earth dragon was a side branch, it was an adult monster with an extremely violent personality, thick skin, and infinite strength. It was currently one of the most troublesome monsters for the level 70 treasure hunting parties. Wang Yu and the others teleported to Dragon Island, and the two terrains appeared in front of them. Roar! With a roar, the two earth dragons took heavy steps. Duong! Duong! And rushed toward the party. Liao Yuan and the others were all top-tier experts, and they were quite calm in the face of the monsters rushing toward them. Nyogu, lure the other earth dragon away first. We'll go after you later, Liao Yuan said as he raised his bow and knocked an arrow. Whoosh! A metal arrow flew out and hit the eye of the earthen dragon on the left without any deviation. Roar! The earth dragon roared angrily. Its aggro was pulled by Liao Yuan, and it charged at Liao Yuan. The fruit knight calmly waved his hand, and the scepter in his hand turned into a shield of light. He lowered his head and used charge to block the land dragon. Adorkable eyes took out something that looked like a wooden stake and smashed it on the ground. A ring of fire spread out, and everyone had an additional frost attack buff. Totems, the witch doctor's exclusive skill. Unlike the priests of the light faction who believe in the god of light, most of the witch doctor's abilities came from their belief in nature. The totem on their backs was the source of their abilities. Not only could it heal HP, increase defense and attack, but could also deal damage on its own. It was commonly known as immortality without a totem. Of course, this was just an exaggeration. However, the witch doctor profession was a rather popular profession in Rebirth. In the past, Wang Yu had only heard of it. Today was the first time he saw the way the witch doctor fought monsters. After buffing them, Sister Li waved her scepter, and 3 icicles flew towards the head of the earth dragon in a triangular formation, instantly freezing it on the spot. It was obvious that this Sister Li was also an extremely powerful ice mage. The freezing effect of ice magic could be stacked under certain conditions. As long as the technique was right, the 3 icicles could be stacked to freeze the target. This was a small trick that only professional players could use. While the earth dragon was frozen, the beautiful Beauty Sala had already rushed to the side of the earth dragon. Her dagger shone with a blue light as it stabbed into the earth dragon's throat. After a wave of attacks, the earth dragon's head lost almost 1/5 of its HP. Just the tacit understanding of their teamwork and the precision with which they unleashed their skills gave them the right to be arrogant. However, at this moment, the earth dragon on the right had already rushed to the back of the team. Damn, what's going on? Seeing that Wang Yu had not lured away the earth dragon on the right, Liao Yuan and the others were shocked. The earth dragon was not difficult to deal with, but its defense was too high. It would be easy to take care of one thing and lose sight of the other, and the efficiency was extremely low. That was why Wang Yu had lured one away to deal with it separately. Who knew that Wang Yu was only focused on watching the others fight and did not move. As a result, everyone had gone to attack the earth dragon on the left, and the beast on the right took advantage of the gap. Seeing this, Liao Yuan could not help but sweat profusely. For the first time, he had doubts about Wang Yu's strength. The beautiful Beauty Sala was even more direct and said, "What expert? You can't even lure a monster. Go and lie in the back. Sister Fruit, you go." As soon as the beautiful Beauty Sala finished speaking, the Fruit Knight turned around, raised his shield, and rushed over. The Earth Dragon had already been frozen, and the Fruit Knight was now in an empty position. This was the perfect replacement. But before the Fruit Knight could reach the Earth Dragon, it had already run to Wang Yu's side. Wang Yu stretched out his left hand and used Ferocious Tiger Strike to grab one of the dragon's horns on the Earth Dragon's head. Wang Yu is now a level 65 Grandmaster of Combat. In terms of strength, he was not much lower than the Earth Dragon. With his equipment, taking down a normal level 70 monster was a piece of cake. Under Wang Yu's grab skill, the Earth Dragon was forcibly stopped. Then, Wang Yu raised his right hand and punched the Earth Dragon's chin, right between its ears. Bang! With a muffled sound, a mosquito coil floated up from the Earth Dragon's head. It had clearly been knocked out. Wang Yu grabbed the dragon's horn with both hands and pulled it hard. Boom! The Earth Dragon crashed to the ground. Wang Yu stepped on the Earth Dragon's neck with Thunder Stomp, then bent down and used Tyrannical Fist Dance. The poor Earth Dragon did not even get a chance to groan before it was turned into a ball of white light by Wang Yu. At this time, the Fruit Knight had also reached Wang Yu. Looking at the Earth Dragon that had turned into a ball of white light, the Fruit Knight felt like he was dreaming. Liao Yuan and the others were even more shocked. This was especially true for the beautiful enchantress. She looked at the nearby Wang Yu, her eyes filled with disbelief. Even the players in the nearby treasure hunting teams stopped what they were doing, glaring at Wang Yu as if she were a monster. For a moment, silence reigned. That was the Earth Dragon they were talking about. Although it was only a common monster, it had hundreds of thousands of HP. What was more frightening was the Earth Dragon's high defense. Unless one attacked a vital point, current players would not even be able to break through the Earth Dragon's defense due to the level suppression. Yet, Wang Yu had blocked the Earth Dragon's charge with one hand, then killed it with a few punches and 2 kicks. Such frightening attack power and attack priority were simply unheard of. Chapter 1537. 3 punches and 2 kicks had been a terrifying phrase since ancient times. For example, Wu Song killed a tiger with 3 punches and 2 kicks, Lu De killed Jingguanxi with 3 punches and 2 kicks, and Iron Ox sent the reader flying off the sofa with 3 punches and 2 kicks. With these 3 examples, one could see how terrifying this phrase was. Wang Yu was even more ruthless, killing a dragon with 3 punches and 2 kicks. The author instantly had the urge to change the name of his new book, One Punch Martial Immortal, to 3 punches and 2 kicks. Cough cough. The water has run out. In short, Wang Yu's ferocious methods gave everyone a fright. It took a long time for them to recover. What the F***? Is this grandson even human? He's not using a cheat, is he? This attack power, this judgment, who would believe that he's not using a cheat? The surrounding players discussed. Even Liao Yuan and the others, who were with Wang Yu, looked at Wang Yu in disbelief. Was it a coincidence? Or was it a wild guess? How could a player be this fierce? Roar! While he was still in a daze, the Earth Dragon that was frozen at the beginning had already broken free from his control. With a roar, it charged towards the beauty closest to it. Sister Temptress, get out of the way. When Tian Xiang, who was at the side, saw this, she hurriedly called out. The beautiful enchantress turned her head when she heard this and saw the terrifying face of the Earth Dragon charging at her. She was startled and immediately panicked. Seeing that the stunning beauty was about to be trampled to death by the Earth Dragon, Wang Yu slapped with her right hand. A white light shot out from her hand and wrapped around the stunning beauty's waist, pulling her to her side. Duong! The Earth Dragon missed its footing and almost fell to the ground. At this time, Liao Yuan and the others hurriedly attacked. Liao Yuan's team had 2 main damage dealers, Liao Yuan and Beauty Temptress. The Sorcerer's sister Li's main role was control. Without Beauty Temptress, the team's damage output plummeted. The Earth Dragon's skin was thick, and its defense against physical attacks was remarkable. Although the Earth Dragon was close, its back was facing Liao Yuan. For a moment, Liao Yuan's arrows lost their aim, and he couldn't hit the Earth Dragon's eyes at all. After a wave of attacks, the effect was minimal. Under the attack of the arrows, the Earth Dragon slowly turned around and charged at the team again. In the blink of an eye, Wang Yu leaped in front of the Earth Dragon and ruthlessly stabbed his fingers into the Earth Dragon's neck behind its ears. Poochie! A strange sound rang out. Wang Yu stabbed the Earth Dragon into the ground with a knife hand. Then, he followed up with 2 fists, and a set of old punches turned it into white light. What kind of explanation is that? Liao Yuan and the others were completely dumbfounded. Coincidences wouldn't happen twice in a row. The first time, everyone could say that Wang Yu had knocked the earth dragon to the ground by luck, but the second time it would be true skill to be able to knock over a huge earth dragon with one punch. This was simply unbelievable. Liao Yuan was also an expert who was regarded as a god of his class. He had absolute confidence in his own strength. Although he knew early on that Wang Yu was very strong and not weaker than himself, the data in the game was fair. So, Liao Yuan had always thought that even if Wang Yu was stronger than him, it was only by a little. From the perspective of class restraint, if they were to really fight, it was hard to say who would win. But seeing this scene, Liao Yuan finally saw the gap between the two of them. Liao Yuan didn't know if this was Wang Yu's limit, but he knew that this kind of performance was already out of his reach. It seemed that even among experts, there were still differences in strength. At first, Liao Yuan thought that it was pure luck that Xu Anjin's group was able to defeat Five Lakes 4C's team. Now that he saw Wang Yu's strength, he understood that Five Lakes 4C's team was the lucky one. After all, experts in the gaming circle would only play together with experts. Xu Anjin could be a team with Wang Yu, and their strength should not be much weaker than Wang Yu's. Liao Yuan's heart palpitated when he thought about how Xu Anjin had more than a dozen experts. Liao Yuan suddenly felt that this game was much harder to play than he had imagined. As for the beautiful enchantress, she was now at the back of the team without saying a word. It was obvious that this girl was frightened by Wang Yu. A toad that had been sitting in the well for a long time would eventually doubt life when it suddenly jumped out of the well. An expert would be respected no matter where they were. After defeating the two earth dragons, Wang Yu's position in the team had significantly improved. At first, Wang Yu was only used as a foreign aid to lure monsters, but now he had become the main damage output of the team. There were just level 70 monsters. With Wang Yu around, there was no need to split them up. Just like that, with a powerful expert like Wang Yu around, Liao Yuan's party killed a bloody path to the high-level monster area under the astonished gazes of the treasure-hunting team. Soon, everyone killed their way out of the level 70 monster area and arrived at the Dragon Plain. The Dragon Plain was a level 80 monster area on Dragon Island. The monsters here were generally 20 levels higher than the players in the team. In fact, everyone was an expert. Killing monsters 20 levels higher than them was not too difficult. However, in the game, monsters with 2 words in their names were the most terrifying. One was with the word God, and the other was with the word dragon. Once a monster had the word dragon in its name, it would be much stronger than monsters of the same level. This was especially true for dragon-type monsters. Not only did they have thick skin and flesh, most of them were also proficient in both magic and physical skills. They were a nightmare for players at the current stage of the game. Under the suppression of levels, one could not even break their defense without special means. As soon as they entered the Dragon Plain, Liao Yuan took out the dragon-slaying potion and handed it to Stunning Beauty. The two of them were the main damage output. Of course, good steel should be used on the blade. Stunning Beauty took the dragon-slaying potion and did not say anything. Instead, she handed it to Wang Yu and said, "For you." When the girls saw this, they all revealed a strange expression that seemed like a smile that wasn't a smile. It was not difficult to see that Stunning Beauty was a girl with a strong personality. After playing the game with her for so long, it was always Stunning Beauty who snatched supplies from others for her own use. This was the first time that she took her potion and gave it to someone else to use. This was originally a small matter, but after being digested by this group of gossipy women, it was no longer a small matter. I reckon that after completing this mission, a 2 million-word romance novel would have already been written in their heads. If everyone wants to read it, I can open another chapter. Seeing the potion in Stunning Beauty's hand, Wang Yu was also slightly stunned. He looked at Stunning Beauty with a puzzled expression. What did this chick mean? This was completely different from her behavior just now. Stunning Beauty blushed under Wang Yu's gaze. She said, I'm sorry. Thank you. The so-called sorry meant that she was sorry for her attitude at the beginning. Thank you for Wang Yu saving her life. When Wang Yu heard this, he was dumbfounded. Chapter 1538. Of course, Wang Yu was not an insensible kid. He knew that Absolute Beauty Enchantress was doing this to show her goodwill. So he waved his hand and said, "Take it. I don't need it." Hearing Wang Yu's words, everyone was stunned. Liao Yuan came over and said, "Niu Gu, this is a high-level monster area. The monsters at the back are getting harder and harder to fight. Moreover, the monsters here all have the dragon aura attribute. The level suppression is more than double that of monsters of the same level. We can't fight them without a potion." "It's okay." Wang Yu smiled and revealed the Dragon Slayer title above his head. Seeing this, everyone was speechless. Well, this guy was really full of surprises. The additional attributes of the Dragon Slayer title were much more awesome than the potions. In front of the Dragon Slayer, not only did dragon-type monsters lose their advantage, but they were also weaker than normal monsters. No wonder Wang Yu had been so relaxed along the way. It turned out that he had such a title. Absolute Beauty Enchantress naturally knew that Wang Yu was not interested in her potion, so she put it back into her bag with a disappointed expression. After distributing the potions, the party continued forward. In the quest options, Wang Yu learned that Liao Yuan's quest destination was the Dragon Castle. The Dragon Castle was located in the center of Dragon Island, surrounded by monster areas. Although the monsters in the Dragon Plain were level 80, compared to other places with level 100 monsters, the Dragon Plain was the safest route. There were two main types of monsters in the Dragon Plain. One was the large dragon whelp, which evolved from infant dragons. The other was the magic earth dragon, which evolved from terrain dragons. The direct dragon uncle was relatively easy to deal with in its infancy. Compared to infant dragons, the large dragon whelp was much bigger, and the power of its breath was slightly stronger. When the ice totem of adorable eyes stabbed into the ground, everyone had the ice attack buff. With the attribute suppression, the large dragon whelp was just a target with a bit more HP, not worth mentioning. However, this side branch of the magic earth dragon was more difficult to deal with. The earth dragon whelp only had rough skin and thick flesh, but the magic earth dragon had dragon scales, which gave it a certain degree of magic resistance. It was also very resistant to control skills. After receiving the buff from the ice totem, Big Sis Lee's control over ice magic had improved considerably. Even so, she was still unable to control the magical drake. Moreover, the magic earth dragons were social creatures. There were 7 or 8 of them in a group, and they ran like tanks. What was more frightening was that these beasts were also proficient in intermediate and advanced magic. Due to their dragon's bloodline, their ranged magic output was no weaker than a player's. Fortunately, Burning Prairie had asked for Wang Yu's help. Otherwise, everyone would have been wiped out by the first wave of Terra dragons. The map in Rebirth was created according to the scale of the monsters. Dragons were born huge, and the dragon plains were naturally several times larger than the plains of the hero's continent. According to the directions in the Prairie Fire quest, they would hide if they could and fight if they couldn't. After walking for 1.5 hours, they had only covered half of the distance and arrived at the center of the Dragon Plain. From this, it could be seen how vast the Dragon Island was. Of course, although it took a long time, the atmosphere of the team was still quite good. Men and women working together was not tiring at all. Wang Yu finally understood why Burning Prairie had a team of female players as his teammates. Even a bunch of flower vases was pleasing to the eye. On the other hand, Chuanjin's group of animals. If they were allowed to grind in the Dragon Plains for 2 hours, they would probably start fighting among themselves before they even finished killing the monsters. The EXP and drop rate for killing monsters above their level were quite good. Moreover, the monsters they were facing were dragons. In the Western fantasy system, dragons represented wealth. The Terra dragons were also dragons. Wealth aside, everyone had accumulated a lot of dragon scales and dragon bones. These were all excellent materials for forging equipment and could be sold for a large sum of money on the market. It was no wonder that the treasure hunting party had come to Dragon Island to risk their lives when they were only level 50. The rewards were incomparable to other places. After walking hurriedly for a few more minutes, the scenery didn't change much. However, the number of monsters in the vicinity suddenly decreased. Seeing this scene, everyone immediately became vigilant. After playing Rebirth for a long time, everyone had accumulated a lot of experience. The monsters in this game also had a food chain. If the density of monsters suddenly decreased, there were only two possibilities. First, it could be that players had just cleared the map and the monsters hadn't respawned yet. Second, there must be some powerful monsters nearby that other monsters didn't dare to approach. This kind of powerful monster had a 50% chance of being a boss, and a 10% chance of being an NPC with intelligence that was even more terrifying than a boss. The Dragon Plains was so dangerous that the number of players who could enter this place could be counted on one hand. Naturally, it was impossible for players to clear the map here. Therefore, the only explanation was that there was a powerful boss or NPC nearby. Thinking of this, the girls couldn't help but ask Burning Prairie, "Burning Prairie, should we take a detour or go straight through?" Players naturally liked bosses, but challenging a boss depended on one's strength. This was the Dragon Plains, not the Hero's Continent. Normal monsters were already so difficult to deal with, let alone bosses. A level 80 monster meant that the boss had to be at least level 100. Level 100 was a whole new level. The strength of the boss could no longer be measured by levels. With the strength of players at this stage, even if it was just a normal non-elite level boss, it would be impossible to defeat it without dozens or hundreds of players, and that was when they had sufficient supplies and potions. Otherwise, a thunderstorm spell would only deal -1 damage, and no matter how many players there were, they wouldn't be enough to fill the gaps between the boss teeth. Burning Prairie's team didn't have many people to begin with. Even with the new addition of Wang Yu, there were only 7 of them. If they provoked the boss, wouldn't they just die? There were no respawn points on Dragon Island, and they had to respawn in Celestial Dragon City. The teleportation fee was a small matter, but they had wasted so much time on the road, and they didn't want to go through it again. Dieter, Burning Prairie took out the map and looked at it. It's not impossible to detour, but there's a lake in front. If we detour, it'll be a little far. Oh, hearing Burning Prairie's words, Wang Yu asked in confusion, "How far?" "We'll probably have to walk the same distance as before," Liao Yuan gestured and said. "Oh." Wang Yu nodded and said, "If that's the case, let's not take a detour." "Not take a detour?" Burning Prairie said awkwardly. "There might be a boss blocking the way." "A boss?" Wang Yu was stunned. "Yes." Burning Prairie nodded vigorously, hoping that Wang Yu would back off. Chapter 1539. Wang Yu's way of thinking was fundamentally different from that of ordinary players. Ordinary players played a lot of games and knew the pros and cons of bosses. They knew when to avoid bosses, and they wouldn't blindly challenge them. However, in Wang Yu's mind, bosses represented money and a high drop rate. Going up and kicking a boss or two was a basic rule for players. It couldn't be helped. This was a situation determined by strength. After all, with Wang Yu's strength, no matter how overpowered the boss was in the end, it wouldn't be as overpowered as Wang Yu. Dragon Emperor Dales was awesome. On Dragon Island, and even on the entire continent, there was no one more ruthless than Dales. Even such a ruthless character, when Wang Yu first saw it, he was also excited to go up and attack it. As for the other bosses, in Wang Yu's eyes, naturally, this was the only option. No way. Seeing Wang Yu so excited when he heard the word boss, Liao Yuan hurriedly reminded him, "That's a level 100 boss." "Really?" "Only higher, not lower," Liao Yuan said confidently. "That's great." Wang Yu was even more excited when he heard this. He said excitedly, "This kind of boss will definitely drop a lot of good stuff." Hearing Wang Yu's words, Liao Yuan was speechless. He said helplessly, "We might not be able to beat it." "You're joking." Wang Yu waved his hand and said, "How would you know if you don't try? Is there even a need to try?" The others were also shocked by Wang Yu's words. This guy must be crazy. No matter how strong you are, you're still just a player over level 60. You want to challenge a level 100 boss with just 7 people? Do you not know how to write the word death? Of course we have to try. Xuanjin has always been like this, Wang Yu said matter-of-factly. Wasn't that right? Xuanjin had Wang Yu's absolute strength and Wuji's absolute treachery. They could do whatever they wanted in the game. Up until now, there was really nothing they didn't dare to do. The reason why Wang Yu could be in cahoots with this group of bastards was because their audacious characters were too similar to Wang Yu's temper. It was worth a try. In the game, the worst that could happen was dying once. It was this kind of subtle mutual influence that made Wang Yu more and more daring, and the dogs at Chuanjin also more and more daring. Is that so? What do you guys think? Liao Yuan found it hard to believe and quickly turned to ask the girls for their opinions. Don't ask me. I'm a tank. I'm in charge of fighting monsters. The Fruit Knight shrugged. Don't ask me. I'm a witch doctor. I'm in charge of inserting stakes. Adorable eyes followed suit. Don't ask me. I'm controlling. I'm controlling the monsters. Sisterly followed suit. Don't ask me. I'm a support. I'm in charge of healing. Tian Xiang waved the paper umbrella in her hand and leisurely walked behind the others. F***CK. Liao Yuan turned to look at the beautiful enchantress gloomily. If you dare say that I won't ask you, I'll be furious. I'm the damage dealer. If not me, who should I ask? The beautiful enchantress rolled her eyes. Then, do you want to fight? Liao Yuan asked. The beautiful enchantress blushed and said, I'll listen to Nyogu. Liao Yuan almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Words like girls are extroverted, and I'm on the side of outsiders came to the tip of his tongue. What kind of person was this? Helpless, the minority followed the majority. Hearing the beautiful enchantress say this, Liao Yuan could only say, forget it. If that's the case, let's continue forward. As he spoke, the group continued forward. As expected, after walking for a short while, a huge lake appeared in front of them. Moreover, there were no normal monsters here. It was obvious that the boss was nearby. Oh, what's that? Just as Liao Yuan was looking around with his hand over his eyes, adorable eyes suddenly pointed to a place not far away and shouted, There's shiny gold over there. There seems to be jewelry. Jewelry? At the mention of jewelry, all the girls' eyes lit up at once. Wang Yu and Liao Yuan were both speechless. Well, it seemed that women and dragons had the same attributes. Liao Yuan was a very cautious guy. He quickly looked in the direction that Adorable Eyes was pointing at, and when he saw clearly what Adorable Eyes was pointing at, his face turned green. How is that jewelry? It was simply monsters. Those monsters were on all fours and looked very similar to the magic earth dragons on the dragon plane. The difference was that these earth dragons were covered in a layer of magic scales that shone with colorful light. From afar, it was indeed no different from the colorful jewelry. This kind of annoying setting could easily attract greedy treasure hunting parties. It was clear that the game designers had put in a lot of effort to make the players die. Liao Yuan wiped the sweat off his forehead and cast detection over. The attributes of those monsters appeared in the party channel. Earth Dragon, level 80, Elite, HP, 1000000 MP, 1000000 skills. Earth Shriek, Dragon Stomp Talent, Draconic Aura Background Introduction. The Gar the Golden Dragon Whelp. Strengthened by Draconic Magic. The Magic Earth Dragon has unparalleled power and is very terrifying. Elite Monster. Seeing the attributes of the Earth Dragon, Liao Yuan and the girls were a little worried. Meow. Although this Earth Dragon was only an elite monster, its HP bar was as high as 1,000,000, almost as high as a small boss. Everyone had seen the Draconic Aura talent along the way. It was a talent unique to Dragon-type monsters, and it would cause the attributes of the enemy to be reduced according to the level of the enemy. Everyone was now level 60, which meant that in front of a level 80 Earth Dragon, all of their attributes would be reduced by 20%. Of course, Wang Yu had the title of Dragon Slayer, so he could ignore Draconic Aura. However, these two skills of the Earth Dragon were really a bit of a headache. Earth Shriek and Dragon Stomp. From the names, it was not hard to tell that they were Earth spells. Earth magic was the most difficult of all the magic elements to deal with. Not only was its defense extremely high, but its attack power was also not weak. Moreover, once it was cast, players would not be able to avoid it. After all, most players could not leave the ground when they fought. As long as their feet did not leave the ground, Earth magic would be a nightmare for players. Not to mention this kind of AoE attack, players did not even have an effective way to deal with support skills like Earth Escape. If there was only one Earth Dragon, it would be fine. With Wang Yu, everyone was confident that they could grind it to death. However, there were 4 Earth Dragons in front of them. This was very frustrating. What are you waiting for? Start the fight. Seeing that Liao Yuan did not speak, Wang Yu could not help but remind him. Start the fight? Are you sure? Liao Yuan was a little confused. It was fine if you said you wanted to try without seeing the monster's attributes, but now that the monster's attributes are listed, you still want to try? This was a little unreasonable. Chapter 1540. Nonsense. Why else would we be here? Wang Yu was depressed. Liao Yuan was too cautious. Why don't you give me the bow? I'll open it. As he spoke, Wang Yu was about to take Liao Yuan's bow. I'll open it. I'll open it. Seeing this, Liao Yuan hurriedly nocked an arrow. Whoosh! An arrow flew out and landed on the head of one of the earthly demonic dragons. With this arrow, exclamation marks floated above the heads of the 4 earthly demonic dragons. Immediately after, they pounced toward Wang Yu and the others. Coming. Seeing the earthly demonic dragon charging over, adorable eyes hugged the totem with both hands and smashed it into the ground. Bang! A circle of blue light spread out, adding a buff to everyone's bodies. Liao Yuan and Gorgeous Beauty also took out their dragon-slaying potions and drank them. Can you guys tank 3 of them? Wang Yu turned around and asked. If we can, we should be able to. Liao Yuan nodded. The reason why Liao Yuan did not want to fight these elite monsters was not because the team could not beat them. The main reason was that the damage output of the team was too low. Fighting these thick-skinned monsters was a waste of supplies and time. They were only halfway through the journey. If they used up all the potions here, how would they deal with the rest of the process? However, if it was just to tank monsters, everyone was an expert. No matter how strong these monsters were, they could not do anything to Liao Yuan and the others. Then hold them, Wang Yu instructed. He rushed forward, grabbed one of the earthly demonic dragons, and dragged it to the side. Then, he punched the earthly demonic dragon's head. The others quickly changed their attack strategy. Liao Yuan and Sister Li each kited one, while the Fruit Knight and Heavenly Fragrance worked together to tank one, giving Wang Yu space to fight one-on-one. Of course, with Wang Yu's abilities, these 4 earthen dragons were nothing to him. Even if these monsters attacked him together, Wang Yu would be able to deal with them easily. However, Wang Yu had been with Xuanzhen for a long time now, and he knew that even powerhouses cared about their pride. It would hurt their pride to be led around by others. Naturally, Wang Yu had to leave some space for others to show off. The earthen demonic dragon had high attack and high defense, but its weakness was also quite obvious. Its attack speed was so slow that even Wang Yu was anxious for it. This kind of strength-type monster was basically a punching bag in front of Wang Yu. It was only slightly stronger than the wooden dummy on Wang Yu's balcony. Therefore, although the earthen demonic dragon had more than 1 million health points, it was basically useless against Wang Yu. Burst Fist, Straight Fist, Dragon Nod. After a series of 3 consecutive attacks, the earthen demonic dragon was on the verge of collapse. Then, he followed up with an elbow strike, smashing the top of the earthen demonic dragon's skull from above. The poor earthen demonic dragon groaned and was beaten to the ground by Wang Yu. Then, Wang Yu pressed his left hand against the earthen demonic dragon's mouth, and with his right hand, he fiercely performed a set of big moves, sky-dominating fist dance. With his identity as a dragon slayer, not only was he immune to the draconic aura, but he also had a strong restraining effect on dragon-type monsters. With so many bonuses, the earthen demonic dragon took the full brunt of Wang Yu's iron fists. A series of red health points floated up, and the health bar on its head was instantly reduced to skin. Finally, Wang Yu's left hand sent a chi wave into the earthen demonic dragon's mouth. Bang! As the chi wave exploded, the earthen demonic dragon, with 1 million health points, turned into a beam of white light in less than 10 seconds. As for Liao Yuan and Wang Yu, they had only dragged the earthen demonic dragon for a few dozen meters. F***CK. Liao Yuan was on the verge of collapsing. He almost threw his bow to the ground. Mother of asterisk her. How was he supposed to fly a kite when things were already like this? Sister Lee also had a depressed look on her face. She put away her staff and ran towards Wang Yu's side. What was the point of pulling the monster? They could just directly bring it over. Absolute Beauty Enchantress and the others were even more stunned on the spot. Along the way, this was not the first time that Li Yao and the others had seen Wang Yu's insanity. However, when they saw this scene, their hearts still could not take it. Against normal monsters, a set of instant kills was fine, but against elite monsters, it was still a set of instant kills. Would it be the same when they encountered a boss? Was there any limit to this guy's insanity? Calm down, calm down. Tian Xiang beamed as she cast a healing spell on everyone to soothe their spirits and go to bed. For a guy like Wang Yu, everyone could only use words to calm themselves down. After insta-killing the earthen demonic dragon in his hand, Wang Yu raised his head and looked around. Liao Yuan and Sister Li had already brought the earthen demonic dragon to Wang Yu's side. Wang Yu repeated what he had done and continued to throw punches. Seeing this, the others were too embarrassed to stay idle. Everyone rushed forward. The four elite monsters only lived for a few minutes before they were all sent back to the embrace of Mother System. So these earthen demonic dragons are actually this weak. Looking at the place where the earthen demonic dragon disappeared, everyone could not help but mutter to themselves. That's right, Wang Yu said earnestly. The greatest fear of humans comes from their own hearts. As long as you can defeat yourself, you can defeat your enemies. Wow, Neo-Ji's words are so philosophical. The girls said with stars in their eyes. Is Big Brother Iron Ox a philosopher in real life? No. Wang Yu waved his hand and said, I'm a martial arts scholar. We're talking about in real life. The girls reminded him. That's right. I'm also a martial arts scholar in real life. As he said this, Wang Yu waved his fist and got into a fighting stance. TSK. Boring. The girls all showed disdainful expressions. Sigh. Wang Yu shook his head. There's still a long way to go to popularize martial arts. Nyoga, can you teach me? At this moment, the beautiful Beauty Enchantress asked embarrassedly. You believe what I said? Wang Yu asked, a little surprised. People's views could not be changed so easily. Back when esports had not been popularized, it had also carried the infamy of being an electronic opium for decades. It was not something that could be done so quickly to change the status of Kung Fu in people's hearts. Therefore, even though Wang Yu had achieved good results in the professional league and made Kung Fu famous, in the hearts of most people, Kung Fu was still the same. He did not expect the beautiful Beauty Enchantress to believe him so easily. Wang Yu was very touched. The beautiful Beauty Enchantress nodded and said, You're so strong. There must be a reason. Can you teach me? Huh. Wang Yu laughed and said, I don't think you can learn from me. I'll find someone to teach you another day. What Wang Yu said was true. With Wang Yu's current level, how could he teach these beginners? It was more appropriate to give pointers to martial arts masters. Then it's settled. When this matter is over, I'll go to Yu Huicheng to find you. You have to find me a good master. The beautiful Beauty Enchantress said excitedly. It's not difficult to find a master. Wang Yu said firmly, as for whether to teach or not, it depends on her mood. Of course, it mainly depends on whether you're sensible or not. Are you serious or not? Chapter 1541. Liao Yuan was a typical ordinary person. Nowadays, it was not only Kung Fu, but also most of the traditional Chinese studies, calligraphy, painting, and other skills have been ruined by those fake masters. However, at least there were still genuine works of calligraphy and painting, and Kung Fu could not be proven by killing people on the street. Therefore, it was reasonable for people to question the rationality of Kung Fu. In response to Liao Yuan's doubts, Wang Yu smiled and said, What do you think of your archery? Ha! Liao Yuan laughed and did not answer. Obviously, in Liao Yuan's mind, although Wang Yu was strong, he was still the best in archery. After all, everyone had their own specialization. He did not believe that a grandmaster of combat like Wang Yu could be strong in archery. It seems that you are very confident, Wang Yu asked with a smile. Not bad, not bad. Liao Yuan smiled and did not deny it. Among the people I know, there are at least 3 people who are not weaker than you, Wang Yu said calmly. Liao Yuan's skills were indeed good, but in terms of archery, there was still a gap compared to Grim Reaper's left hand and the others, especially Grim Reaper's left hand. Whether it was understanding of the bow or accuracy, Wang Yu had not seen anyone who could compare to him. Is that so? Liao Yuan had always regarded himself as the world's #1 archer. After being criticized by Wang Yu, he was obviously a little unhappy and asked angrily, "What about you?" He. Wang Yu waved his hand and said, "Don't compare with me." TCH. Scared? Liao Yuan laughed. "No," Wang Yu said. "You are just ordinary people. If I compare with you, I will be bullying you." Damn. Liao Yuan gave a thumbs up and said, "Niu Ge, you must be bragging." Wang Yu ignored Liao Yuan's mockery and said calmly, "All right, stop talking nonsense. The boss is coming out." As he said that, Wang Yu pointed to the lake in front of them. Everyone quickly looked in the direction of Wang Yu's finger. At that moment, a golden dragon head emerged from the water. The golden dragon glanced at the shore, and his eyes flashed with a trace of confusion. When he saw Wang Yu's group, he immediately roared angrily. With a flap of its wings, it flew out of the lake and into the sky. This dragon's entire body was golden. It was as if it was made of pure gold. Compared to the other creatures on the Dragon Island, this dragon's body wasn't considered big. It was only 2 meters long and as tall as a person, and it was only 3 meters wide when both its hands were spread out. However, the dragon might released by this dragon was clearly much stronger than that of the other dragons. Wang Yu cast a detect spell on it, and the monster's attributes appeared in front of everyone. Young golden dragon, tigress, HP, MP, skills, talent, king's dragon or a background introduction. The golden dragon possesses the purest and noblest bloodline of all dragons. Although the infant golden dragon is young, it is proficient in dragon magic and is extremely powerful. Seeing the infant golden dragon's attributes, Wang Yu couldn't help but rub his chin. It was a series of question marks. Clearly, this infant golden dragon was more than 20 levels higher than Wang Yu. It had to be at least level 85. Wang Yu wasn't sure about its skills, but he knew about the king's might. Among all the dragons that Wang Yu had seen, apart from Dale's, this young dragon was the first one that had this talent. Both were golden holy dragons and had the king's might. Could these two be related by blood? Wang Yu was a person who cared about relationships. Although his relationship with Dale's wasn't good, Dale's was still his follower. Bullying Dale's descendant didn't feel right. Liao Yuan and the others had already been shocked by the infant golden dragon's might. After all, it was the king's might. Under the system's mandatory settings, Liao Yuan also wanted to resist, but he couldn't control his character. Although he couldn't move, he could still send messages. Liao Yuan said to Wang Yu in fear, "It's over, Niu Ge. This dragon isn't to be trifled with. We gone too far. You run first. I'll spar with you another day." Run? Wang Yu smiled and waved his hand. "There's no need. Meow. I'm just considering whether or not to beat this dragon up. You want me to run? We're not even on the same channel." Just then, the infant golden dragon in the sky spoke. This dragon spoke in a standard Shota voice and said angrily, "Who are you people? How dare you trespass on Dragon Island and kill my guards? Do you want to die, or are you tired of living? You can even speak? Looks like your IQ isn't low," Wang Yu replied calmly. Seeing that Wang Yu wasn't suppressed by its dragon's might, the infant golden dragon looked at Wang Yu in surprise and said, "Who are you? Why do I feel that you have a familiar scent? Furthermore, I find your face repulsive." Wang Yu was speechless when he heard the infant golden dragon's words. The familiar scent was most likely due to his contract with Dale's. As for his repulsive face, how could it not be repulsive when he had the Dragon Slayer title on his head? That's a long story. Wang Yu took out Dale's token and asked, "Do you recognize this? This is?" When the infant golden dragon saw the token, it tilted its head and looked at it carefully. After a while, the infant golden dragon said, "What's written on it? I can't read." "Damn, Wang Yu's figure flashed. He pointed at the words on the token and read, "This is the Dragon King's token." Dragon King's token? The infant golden dragon was stunned when it heard this. Don't lie to me just because I'm young. How can a human like you have the Dragon King's token? It must be fake. Wang Yu was speechless. Wang Yu was now convinced by the game designer. Logically speaking, Dale's token was the highest order of the dragons. Seeing the token was like seeing Dale's. Wang Yu always had the Dragon King's token. The reason why he didn't take it out at the beginning was that he knew that monsters without AI had no concept of a token. Therefore, even if Wang Yu took out the token and waved it in front of the monsters, they wouldn't recognize it. However, what Wang Yu didn't expect was that in order to make the item useless, the game designer would set up a setting where the highly AI monsters were illiterate. Damn, such a highly AI monster can't read. Isn't this F*King bullsh*? With the game designer doing this, Wang Yu really had no way to deal with it. The reason why the monsters were illiterate was because they didn't recognize the token. Could you force them to be educated? All right, Wang Yu put the token back into his bag unhurriedly. He then stretched his joints and said, "Kid, I won't deal with you for the sake of our friendship. You better make way for me now. Otherwise, don't blame me for being merciless." Chapter 1542. Nyogu. Nyogu. Seeing that Wang Yu was going to risk his life against the boss, Liao Yuan hurriedly advised, "Give me some face. Don't stoop to the same level as little naughty dragon." What a joke. Right now, this golden infant dragon was only trying to intimidate everyone. It had no intention of killing them. Based on the dragon's greedy and lustful habits, with so many beautiful girls in Burning Prairie's team, there should be a way out. Wang Yu, on the other hand, was shouting about killing the moment he arrived. Wasn't he leading the entire team to their deaths? Seeing Wang Yu's expression, the infant golden dragon couldn't help but laugh. "Ignorant human, you know nothing about true strength. Do you know who your opponent is? Cut the crap. Watch my fist." Wang Yu had no intention of reasoning with this kind of immature and illiterate person. Naughty children had to be beaten to death, and it was the same for dragons. As soon as Wang Yu uttered the word fist, Wang Yu's figure flashed and appeared in front of the infant golden dragon. Sigma, degree, winky face. Wang Yu's sudden appearance gave the infant golden dragon a fright. It subconsciously opened its mouth and spat out a mouthful of phlegm at Wang Yu. Of course, some people called it dragon breath. Hee. Seeing this, Wang Yu unhurriedly leaped into the air and leaped diagonally above the infant golden dragon's head. Immediately after, a dazzling circle of lightning burst out from Wang Yu's feet and heavily stomped on the infant golden dragon's nose. Thunderstomp. Duong. Before the infant golden dragon could finish spewing dragon breath, Wang Yu kicked it shut. This sudden kick nearly caused the infant golden dragon to choke to death on its own dragon breath. 2 wisps of smoke sprayed out from the infant golden dragon's nostrils. The infant golden dragon's head was facing downwards as Wang Yu kicked it down from the sky. Boom! The infant golden dragon fell into the lake, creating a huge splash. Holy shit! Seeing this scene, Liao Yuan and the others' eyes popped out. Damn it! Killing a normal monster in one hit was still understandable, but killing an elite monster in one hit was still acceptable. However, this infant golden dragon was a level 100 boss. Moreover, it was the kind with high AI. Yet, someone had kicked it out of the sky. What the hell was going on? How could he let the others live? Boom. While everyone was still in shock, another huge wave rose up in the lake. The infant golden dragon slapped the huge wave and soared into the sky. Then, it raised its head and roared, "Roar! Hateful human, how dare you sneak attack me?" With a furious roar, the infant golden dragon soared high into the air. Then, it folded its wings and descended from the sky like a cannonball, crashing toward Wang Yu at an extremely fast speed. Wang Yu took a step back, crossed his arms, and put them down. Bang! Golden light surrounded him as he activated Dragon, subduing Palm. Blue light surrounded him as his inner breath surged. With these two buffs, his attributes skyrocketed. Facing the oncoming infant golden dragon, Wang Yu did not dodge. He raised his right elbow and pushed his right fist with his left hand. Then, he turned to the side and used elbow strike. Profound meaning of dragon subduing, sudden strike bang. A muffled sound rang out as Wang Zheng's elbow landed squarely on the infant golden dragon's face. The infant golden dragon's head was smashed backward, and it was stopped in its tracks by Wang Yu's attack. Before the infant golden dragon could react, Wang Yu abruptly twisted her waist to the left, and with a twist of her left elbow, she accurately smashed the infant golden dragon's eye. Roar! The poor infant golden dragon cried out in pain. It was dizzy from Wang Yu's two elbows. Of course, as a level 100 boss, the infant golden dragon's health bar was still very high. The elbow strike was not a powerful attack, so it did not deal much damage. However, at this moment, he suddenly stepped forward and grabbed the infant golden dragon's head with both hands. Then, he pulled it down and raised his right knee. He used knee rush. Knee rush was one of the grandmasters of combat's powerful attack skills. Although it was a simple move, the damage was almost comparable to Shadow Chain Kick. With the support of Dragon's subduing palm, the damage was doubled. Bang! A huge damage number floated up. The infant golden dragon was knocked back by Wang Yu's attack, and it fell into the water once again. Liao Yuan and the others, who were watching from the side, were completely confused. They did not even notice that the suppression of their draconic aura had been lifted. They only looked at Wang Yu in a daze. They did not know how to describe their feelings. Liao Yuan was especially muttering to himself, "This is not a human. This is not a human. Xiang, quick, heal us." This time, after a few dozen seconds, the infant golden dragon sneakily popped its head out of the water. It carefully looked around. After confirming that Wang Yu was not nearby, it spread its wings and flew up. Then, it shouted at Wang Yu, who was on the ground, "Lowly human, use whatever skills you have." Huh? Seeing this little rotten dragon still being so arrogant, even after being beaten up so badly, Wang Yu smiled in surprise. He used both of his hands to unleash a power that could topple mountains and overturn seas. A powerful inner breath gathered on both of his hands, and a huge golden dragon rushed into the sky. Profound art of subduing dragon, Astonish. Astonish was the most powerful move in Wang Yu's dragon subduing palm. Back then, Wang Yu destroyed Blackbeard's Spectre ship in one hit when he was at full strength. Even though the infant golden dragon was a level 100 boss, it was unknown whether it would live or die if it was hit by this palm. The infant golden dragon was only a bear, but it was not stupid. Dragon's subduing palm had a natural restraining effect on dragon-type creatures. Even from far away, the infant golden dragon could feel the terrifying aura on Wang Yu's body. The moment Astonish was used, the scales all over the infant golden dragon's body stood on end. In the blink of an eye, the infant golden dragon retracted its wings and descended. Boom! Wang Yu's skill brushed past the infant golden dragon's head. After missing his attack, Wang Yu was slightly startled. He subconsciously put his hands together again and was about to continue his attack. Plop! Before Wang Yu could finish gathering his skill, the infant golden dragon fell from the sky with a plop. It lay in front of Wang Yu and said loudly, "Uncle, I know I was wrong." Liao Yuan and the others were all speechless. They had played games for so long, but this was the first time they had seen a boss begging for mercy after being beaten by a player. What was wrong with this world? Was this still the game world from before? Meanwhile, Wang Yu patted the infant golden dragon's reverse scale as if it was a common occurrence. He said in a gratified manner, "Good children are obedient. Uncle is right." The infant golden dragon intimately rubbed its head against Wang Yu, its face filled with obedience. Liao Yuan and the others were speechless again. No, they had nothing to say this time. "Then, can we go over now?" Liao Yuan asked the infant golden dragon weakly after a long while. Chapter 1543. Yes, of course. The infant golden dragon nodded happily. It could not wait for these guys to scram. Fortunately, Liao Yuan and his group were obedient. If it were Wu Ji, he would have beaten this little bastard until he threw out his underwear. Wu Ji would not dare to use Wang Yu's surname. Wang Yu had been hanging out with Wu Ji ever since he started playing the game. Wang Yu had imperceptibly learned some of Wu Ji's skills. There was no such thing as leaving just because someone told me to. Of course, Wang Yu was not the kind of person who extorted equipment. Instead, he cupped his eyes as he looked at the endless lake and said, "This lake is quite big. It will take a lot of time to swim across." When players swam, their movement speed was about twice as slow as on land. Since Wang Yu could fly, he was naturally not afraid. However, Liao Yuan would have to spend some time to swim across. Yes, it's quite big. Hearing this, the infant golden dragon looked at the lake and hurriedly nodded in agreement. Then, "Can you give us a ride?" Wang Yu said with a smile. "Wow, old cow, you're too much." Liao Yuan felt sorry for the infant golden dragon. This was the most tragic boss he had ever seen. Not only was it beaten up to the point of begging for mercy, but it was also being ordered around. This is against the rules, right? The infant golden dragon was a little troubled. "I have the proud golden bloodline. Dragons had a lot of rules. It was not easy for ordinary people to ride a dragon. Moreover, the infant golden dragon was of royal bloodline. If it was casually ridden by others, how could it continue to be a dragon in the future? Then there's no other way." Wang Yu spread his hands and said, "It seems that we won't be able to leave anytime soon. Think of a way." Seeing that Wang Yu was such a troublemaker, the infant golden dragon was helpless. It sighed and said, "Uncle, do you have money?" "What? If I don't ask you for money, are you going to ask me for money?" Wang Yu frowned and asked sternly. No. The infant golden dragon hurriedly said, "This is the rule." All right. Wang Yu was not an unreasonable person. He knew that there were many rules for NPCs in the game. Hence, he took out a gold coin and stuffed it into the infant golden dragon's claw. The infant golden dragon took the coin and looked at it, feeling wronged. Then, it looked at Wang Yu and nearly cried. However, under Wang Yu's tyranny, the infant golden dragon still roared at the lake. At this moment, the surface of the lake churned and a small island rose from the lake. When the island completely rose out of the water, Wang Yu and the others couldn't help but exclaim, "Meow! How is this a small island? This is actually a giant tortoise. My respected Highness Tigress, why are you calling me?" The old turtle asked slowly after emerging from the water. The infant golden dragon casually tossed a gold coin to the old tortoise and said, "Send them to the other side." "Just one gold coin?" The old tortoise pursed his lips and said, "Although I, Anton, am imprisoned on Dragon Island, I still have my dignity. There are so many people here, and you want to send me away with just one gold coin? Then how much more do you want?" The infant golden dragon pointed at Wang Yu and said, "They only gave me one gold coin. I'm giving it all to you." "Oh." The old tortoise, who called himself Anton, sized up Wang Yu and immediately revealed a surprised expression. "You're martial god? You flatter me. I'm not a god. I'm just a martial arts scholar." Wang Yu said humbly. "So you're not him," Anton mumbled to himself. "Since you're his successor, you're qualified for this old man to give you a ride for free. Come on up." As he spoke, Anton leaned slightly towards the shore and revealed a longing expression. However, he didn't go ashore. "You can't go ashore?" Wang Yu asked curiously. "A creature like a tortoise should be an amphibious reptile. I'm ashamed to say this," Anton said gloomily. "This old man has been imprisoned here for God knows how many years, and this is the second time I've met a human." "The second time?" Liao Yuan asked curiously. "Does that mean someone else has passed by here? Not long before you came." Anton said, "His Highness Tigress was beaten into the water by them and didn't dare to come out." Hearing this, everyone gave the infant golden dragon a sidelong glance. They didn't expect this guy to have such a miserable fate. The infant golden dragon was exasperated. "Anton, you old thief, can't you stop talking nonsense?" "Huh." Anshuan smiled and said, "His Highness Tigress was unlucky today. All 12 of his guards were killed. Do you believe that I'll get someone to kill you if you say one more word?" The infant golden dragon threatened. Hurry up! The sooner I die, the sooner I respawn. Do you think I want to stay here? Anton looked unconcerned. TSK, I'm not falling for your trick. The infant golden dragon turned his head and ignored Anton. Oh no. At this moment, Liao Yuan suddenly clapped his hands and said, Don't tell me that group of players is going to the giant dragon castle. That's right. How do you know? Anton asked curiously. Hurry, 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 hurry. Liao Yuan hurriedly jumped onto Anton's back and said loudly, Hurry up. It'll be too late if we're late. There's no rush. They're swimming over. The old turtle, Anton, was still unhurried. Liao Yuan took out a bag of gold coins and stuffed it into Anton's turtle shell. 1,000 gold coins, sir. Please hurry up. Haha, what a sensible child. The old turtle laughed and immediately swam over like an arrow released from a bow. Actually, it was no wonder that Liao Yuan was so anxious. Liao Yuan was also an old player, and he knew very well what a game designer was like. Would two teams go to the giant dragon castle for no reason? If he guessed correctly, it was most likely a competition quest. If it was a normal competition quest, it would be fine. Everyone was carefree and not worried. What they were afraid of was that this was a first-come, first-served competition quest. According to Anton, the previous group of players had already gone over. If they didn't hurry up and chase after them, wouldn't they be watching others snatch the quest away? Although the old turtle Anton looked slow, he was really fast when he swam. He moved as fast as lightning, and it didn't take long for everyone to reach the other side of the lake. Hee, hurry up. After throwing everyone down, Anton chuckled and said, Find me when you get back. The more money, the faster. I'd rather die and go back. Liao Yuan and the others vomited and cursed. Damn, this old turtle was really ruthless. When he moved, everyone except Wang Yu vomited. Anton ignored Liao Yuan and the others' curses and turned to Wang Yu and said, Sir Martial Arts Scholar, it's my honor to give you a ride. You're too kind. Wang Yu hurriedly waved his hand humbly. Hee. Anton smiled and said, I wonder if Sir Martial Arts Scholar is looking for a follower. Chapter 1544. Damn, Wang Yu felt a headache coming on when he heard the word follower. Damn it, what's wrong with NPCs these days? They're always chasing players to be their followers. Oh, you're not willing, Sir Martial Scholar? Antoine said with a hint of disappointment. I feel that in this world, only a person like you is worthy of my following. Is that so? Wang Yu asked doubtfully. In Rebirth, Wang Yu didn't dare to believe anything an NPC said, not even the punctuation. Of course, Antoine said, look at my sincere eyes. As he spoke, Antoine looked at Wang Yu with tears in his eyes. Wang Yu glanced at Anshuan and said with a smile, I'm afraid you want me to take you away from this place of imprisonment. I know that as soon as I sign the contract, you'll turn around and run. You won't even look at me. Wang Yu was very experienced in this kind of thing. He already had 2 ingrates in his follower column. Ha ha! Antoine laughed awkwardly when he heard Wang Yu's words. He said honestly, that's true. I wonder if Sir Martial Scholar can take me away from this abyss of suffering. Of course I can. Wang Yu pondered for a moment and said, but I just want to ask, out of so many people, why did you choose me? Humph. Antoine snorted coldly and said, this old man may be down and out, but I still have my pride. How can an ordinary person have the qualifications to make me their follower? Since you're recognized by those 2 old things, Dales and Nephisto, it's clear that you're not an ordinary person. Being your follower doesn't count as a stain on my reputation. Wang Yu was speechless. Fine, it's the same excuse again. Antoine and Nephisto's brain circuits are really strange. I was completely tricked when I accepted Dales back then. You know that. Wang Yu thought for a moment and said, I'm a player, not the kind of person who helps others for free. I understand. Anshuan said, all these years, I have exchanged the pearls at the bottom of the lake for countless treasures and gold coins with the little dragon whelps here. As long as you're willing to save me, these things are all yours. Hee. Wang Yu shook his head and said, I don't lack money right now. Then what do you lack? As long as I have it, I'll give it to you. Antoine was willing to go all out for his freedom. Were you imprisoned here by the martial god? Wang Yu suddenly changed the topic. Antoine was a little embarrassed. Yes, it was Lord Martial God who imprisoned me here. I have repented after so many years. For Martial God to imprison you, you must be a celestial boss, right? Wang Yu asked. That's right. Antoine said proudly. I am the power of the earth in this world, the pillar of heaven Antoine. Even the dragon emperor Dales of this dragon island has to be polite when he sees me. Then do you know what the glory of God is? Wang Yu asked with a smile. Oh. Antoine's face suddenly turned serious when he heard the words glory of God. He then narrowed his eyes and said, Young man, could it be that you want to walk the path of the martial God again? Yes. Wang Yu said, So you know about the glory of God? I know. Antoine said confidently, but with your current level, I don't think the glory of God is something you should consider. You have to be at least level 80 or above. You don't have to worry about that. Wang Yu waved his hand and said, As long as you tell me where the glory of God is, I will sign a contract with you. Young man, don't listen to the old. Forget it. If you don't want to tell me, I'm leaving. Seeing that Antoine was going to talk nonsense again, Wang Yu turned to leave. Don't. Antoine said anxiously, The glory of God is in Sky Star City. Sky Star City? Where is it? Wang Yu asked, puzzled. Wang Yu had played the game for a long time. Although he hadn't visited all 300 main cities of the Hero Continent, he still knew the names. There was no Sky Star City among the 300 main cities. Was this old turtle lying to him? Sky Star City is to the east of Dragon Island. Antoine said, There's a peninsula there that connects to the Hero Continent. Sky Star City is the main city of this region. Peninsula? Wang Yu thought for a while and said, Awesome. In the eyes of you players, that's what it should be called. Antoine said, Back then, the martial god and the divine light god had a duel at the peak of a snowy mountain. The divine light god fell there, and his body turned into Sky Star City. The glory of God is the remnant of his divinity, and it still exists today. Fell. Wang Yu was shocked. That bad? The divine light god was the main faith of priests and knights. Who would have thought that this guy had fallen? This news was too explosive. That's right. Back then, we were all more sensible. Only the divine light god thought that humans should be enslaved, so the martial god simply killed him. Antoine's eyes subconsciously flashed with a hint of gloating when he said this. It seemed that this old turtle and the divine light god didn't have a good relationship at all. Then where do the powers of priests and knights come from? Wang Yu asked curiously. Wang Yu had learned from the books in the library that the source of power in this world came from faith. Mages believe in the power of nature, so they could control the elements such as earth, water, fire, wind, and thunder. Warriors believed in the god of war, so they had infinite power. Assassins believed in the dark, so they had the ability to hide. The main faith of knights and priests was the divine light god. Now that the divine light god had fallen, logically speaking, even if the divine light god was gone, the knights and priests should have no source of power. Antoine said the divine light god is only the user of the light divinity. Even if he has fallen, the light still exists. I see. Wang Yu rubbed his chin and said, What if I take the glory of God? I don't know about that. Antoine shook his head. All right. Wang Yu reached out and said, Give it to me. What? Antoine asked with a blank face. The token. Wang Yu took out the Dragon King's token and the Phoenix token and waved them in front of Antoine's eyes. Otherwise, how can I find you in the future? You're ruthless. Antoine's face was full of black lines as he opened his mouth and spat out a black token. Wang Yu casually caught it in his hand. Order of the Earth, precious item. Uses the Order of the Earth to summon Sky's pillar Antoine in any situation. She still had to pay rent when renting a house. How could Wang Yu's follower column allow these god-tier bosses to live for free without paying? She did not know when she would be able to use this token, so she would just treat it as rent. Putting away the Order of the Earth, Wang Yu took out the contract and handed it to Antoine. Antoine gloriously became Wang Yu's third entourage. Crash! As Antoine signed the contract, the boundary around the lake shattered. Antoine climbed onto the shore and nodded gratefully at Wang Yu before tearing open the space and drifting away. Chapter 1545. F***C me. Liao Yuan was surprised to see Antoine leave in such an arrogant manner. What happened just now? What skill did that old turtle use? Don't call him old turtle. That's a celestial boss. Wang Yu lectured Liao Yuan. Now that he's unsealed, if you dare to scold him, he'll take your life at any time. Celestial boss? Really? Liao Yuan asked with a smile. Obviously, Liao Yuan did not believe Wang Yu's words at all. A celestial boss was a legendary existence that could destroy heaven and earth. How could be a ferryman in this lake? Besides, which celestial boss did not look mighty and domineering? This old turtle lost at the starting line in terms of appearance. Of course it's true, Wang Yu said confidently. Then what were you guys talking about just now? Liao Yuan asked again. Nothing, Wang Yu said calmly. He was crying and begging to be my follower, so I signed a contract with him. Haha, Nyoga sure knows how to joke. Let's go. Hearing Wang Yu's words, Liao Yuan stopped asking. Meow, I'm asking for advice so seriously, but you're talking nonsense. We're not on the same wavelength at all. Of course, Wang Yu knew that Liao Yuan did not believe 100 of his words, but Wang Yu was too lazy to explain. After all, as long as one had not experienced this kind of thing, no one would believe him if he explained it to anyone. Just like how Uncle Neo said that he and Sun Wukong were sworn brothers, and that he was the eldest among the 7 brothers, everyone would definitely think that he was talking nonsense. See, I won't explain. Wang Yu's current mood was the same as the author's. He knew that no one would believe him, so there was no point in explaining. Later on, when people asked Liao Yuan about Wang Yu's personality, Liao Yuan only said one sentence. He's a good person and very powerful. He just likes to brag a little. After crossing the lake, the party was only half a distance away from the dragon castle. There were no more bosses along the way, only some normal monsters. The party didn't encounter any more twists and turns. After an hour, the party finally saw the dragon castle in the distance. How should he describe this giant dragon castle? Describing it as magnificent would be too tacky, but other than this word, Teacher Neo couldn't find any other adjectives. At best, he could only use one word to describe it, and that was giant. It was much bigger than big. It was gigantic. After all, it was the giant dragon castle. The place where a group of giant lizards lived naturally wouldn't be too small. From afar, the giant dragon castle looked like a towering mountain. If it wasn't for the dazzling golden castle shining under the sun, no one would be able to tell which was the mountain and which was the castle. Outside the castle was a moat about 100 feet wide, and there was a huge suspension bridge dozens of meters wide across the moat. Only the heavens knew that this group of giant lizards could fly. So why did they have to build a suspension bridge? Was it just to allow people to enter and leave as they pleased? Anyway, the designer's train of thought was too weird for the players to imagine. Directly opposite the suspension bridge was a huge city gate that was more than 12 feet wide and more than 200 feet tall. On both sides of the city gate was a giant red dragon. That's right, it was lying on the ground. The giant dragon race was born to be a peerless powerhouse, so they were more optimistic about their fate. In layman's terms, they were lazy. Even if they were standing guard at the gate, they had to take this opportunity to take a nap. The giant dragon castle was understandable. It was the nest of the giant dragon race. Who would dare to come here and cause trouble? The so-called guards were just a formality. Of course, regardless of whether it was a formality or not, Liao Yuan and the others were still very well behaved when facing 2 adult giant dragons. What a joke. These 2 giant dragons were boss-level existences no matter where they went. Who would dare to play tricks in front of them? Nyogo, how should we wake them up? Wake them up for what? Wang Yu was puzzled. Can't we just walk over? Wouldn't that be forcing our way in? Liao Yuan rejected righteously. We're here to discuss business in the giant dragon castle. We can't offend them. As he spoke, Liao Yuan walked forward and took out an arrow. He used the feather to tickle the nostril of one of the giant dragons. As he tickled it, he called out softly, "Hello. Sorry to disturb you. This idiot." Wang Yu sweated profusely at the sight. Liao Yuan was an expert. After playing this game for so long, did he still not learn his lesson? He actually thought that this game was for well-behaved children. Achoo! Under Liao Yuan's constant harassment, the giant dragon finally sneezed violently and woke up. Fortunately, Liao Yuan reacted quickly. This mouthful of dragon flame almost killed Liao Yuan. The giant dragon shook its head and got up. It looked at Liao Yuan with sleepy eyes and asked unhappily, "Who are you? How dare you disturb my sleep?" "My name is Liao Yuan." Liao Yuan respectfully took out an invitation and handed it over. "We're invited to the giant dragon castle." "What's this?" the giant dragon asked blankly. "It's written on the cover." Liao Yuan wiped his sweat. The giant dragon proudly swore. "I can't F asterisk king read." Pfft. Wang Yu, who was next to him, burst out laughing. It seemed that the dragon's language was not very common. The illiteracy rate was too high. What was even more annoying was that these big lizards were not ashamed of it. Instead, they were proud of it. What kind of thinking was this? Liao Yuan hurriedly explained. "The invitation was given to me by Elder Haagen-Dazs of the Ice Dragon clan. He asked me to come to the giant dragon castle to find a giant dragon named Manda." "Elder Manda?" The giant dragon thought for a moment and said, "Elder Manda is the president of our giant dragon castle's Elder Council. Why are you looking for him?" "It's written in this invitation." Liao Yuan wiped his sweat. "I can't F asterisk king read." The giant dragon guard said impatiently, "Read it to me." "Damn it, it's dragon language. How can I understand it?" Seeing that the guard was so difficult to deal with, Liao Yuan became anxious and imitated the guard's tone. "Oomph." The giant dragon looked at Liao Yuan with disdain and said, "Since you can't understand it, I can't let you in unless you step over my dead body." After saying that, the giant dragon swung the invitation in his hand and threw it at Liao Yuan's face. Liao Yuan was angry to be played like this by an NPC in front of Wang Yu. But what could he do? He couldn't just drag him over and beat him up like Wang Yu. That's right, he'll be obedient after I beat him up. Thinking of this, Liao Yuan's eyes lit up. "Niu Ge, why don't you teach him a lesson?" Wang Yu is an existence that beat up the golden dragon baby boss until it begged for mercy. Taking care of an ordinary giant dragon was a piece of cake. "I can't." Wang Yu spread his hands and repeated Liao Yuan's words. "We're here to discuss business. We can't offend them." Hearing this, Liao Yuan's expression was as ugly as a bitter gourd. Chapter 1546. As he spoke, Wang Yu walked up to the red dragon, took out the Dragon King's token, and waved it in front of the red dragon. "Look at this. What is this?" "I've said it before." The red dragon glanced at Wang Yu and said impatiently, "I don't F asterisk king know how to read. Hurry up and scram, or don't blame me for being rude." Boom! As soon as the red dragon finished speaking, Wang Yu stomped on the ground with a thunderous stomp, and the powerful force sent stone chips flying. "Sir Warrior!" The originally arrogant red dragon's expression changed instantly when he saw this scene, and he quickly said calmly, "We are all civilized people. Why do we have to fight and kill? Warrior, if you want to go in, just go in." "You're right." Wang Yu nodded and retracted his palm, which was pressed in front of the dragon. The dragon let out a long sigh of relief. Liao Yuan and the others had never seen such a situation before. They were dumbfounded when they saw Wang Yu stop the dragon with a kick, and they mumbled, "There's such a thing. Let's go." Wang Yu waved at Liao Yuan and the others, and walked into the giant dragon castle. Liao Yuan caught up and asked in confusion, "Niu Ge, how did you do that?" "Easy." Wang Yu smiled, turned around, and asked the red dragon, "Are you two guards of the giant dragon castle?" "No," the red dragon replied, shaking his huge head. "See that?" Wang Yu spread his hands. "I told you to ignore them and just walk in. You just had to wake him up." "That's not right." Liao Yuan was surprised. "If you're not a guard, why are you lying here?" The dragon did not want to answer Liao Yuan's question, but when he saw Wang Yu glaring at him, He looked at Liao Yuan with disdain and said, "Did someone say that only guards can lie here? I'm just looking for a sunny place to sleep." I, hearing the giant dragon's reply, Liao Yuan was instantly speechless. Indeed, there was no written rule stating that the creatures in front of the door had to be guards. One had to admit that this was the craftiness of the game designers. Originally, the players only needed to walk by themselves, but the designer insisted on adding 2 dragons here. If the players asked, they would definitely be stopped like a prairie fire, and if they didn't ask, they wouldn't feel confident. It was supposed to be a simple process, but they had to resort to psychological warfare to make the players feel like they were better off dead. It was clear that the game designers had no bottom line. Although he knew that the red dragon was a trap set by the designer, Liao Yuan's mind was still full of questions. "Niogo," Liao Yuan asked curiously, "how do you know that the guard is fake?" "Very simple. Common sense," Wang Yu said indifferently. "Common sense?" Liao Yuan was even more confused. "Which aspect exactly?" Wang Yu was speechless. "You don't even know that? Have you ever seen a doorman who doesn't even know how to read? What's more, it's the Dragon Emperor's token. If my doorman can't even read the invitation, what's the point of listening? Moreover, what kind of place is the Dragon Castle? Even a lord of the Dragon Realm couldn't return. So wouldn't the guards be unnecessary? You can play the game like that." Liao Yuan had played games for so long, but this was the first time he heard that common sense from reality could be brought into the game. It was clearly a different world, so how could they use the same logic? "Of course," Wang Yu said indifferently. "This game is trying its best to create a world that is the closest to reality, but the young golden dragon doesn't know how to read either," Liao Yuan said again. "So what?" Seeing that Liao Yuan was so stubborn, Wang Yu said straightforwardly, "It won't let us in any way. It doesn't cost us to try." "Awesome." When Liao Yuan heard Wang Yu's words, he was stunned for a long time. Then, he gave a thumbs up to Wang Yu and sincerely made an awesome gesture. It couldn't be helped. Wang Yu's reasoning was simply hard to refute. Under the directions of Liao Yuan's map, the group finally entered the Dragon Castle. The standard of construction of the dragon race was much worse than that of humans. The so-called castle was actually a large cave that looked like a house on the outside, while the inside of the castle looked like a lava cave. It was hard to believe that this was the lair of the dragons. It seemed that no matter how intelligent they were, they couldn't escape the category of animals. In terms of enjoyment, the dragon race was much worse than the intelligent humans. Of course, they couldn't rule out the possibility that the dragons liked this environment. It was also the first time that Wang Yu's group had come to the Dragon Castle, so they were unfamiliar with the people and the place. Even with the map in hand, they were still very confused about the cave. The group looked at the map, and, after a long time, they finally came to the vicinity of a large, majestic stone door. The stone door was a little smaller than the main door of the Dragon Castle, and it was completely golden. There were also huge gems inlaid on it, shining brightly. At first glance, it gave people the feeling that it was a nouveau riche. In terms of prestige, the dragon race had once again dropped a level. Apart from being gluttonous and lecherous, this was the only characteristic of the dragons. They didn't seem to have any good characteristics. On both sides of the golden stone door, there were 2 silver-white, majestic and mighty adult dragons standing upright. They seemed to be 2 motionless statues, but their aura was extremely shocking. "I'll go push the door." Liao Yuan had just learned a trick from Wang Yu, and he was eager to show off. He didn't care what dragon was standing at the door, and without saying a word, he walked to the stone door and reached out to push it open. At this time, one of the silver dragons looked at Liao Yuan coldly and said, "Who are you? How dare you trespass into the Dragon Castle? It's none of your business. Open the door." Liao Yuan snorted coldly, took out his bow and arrow, and aimed at the silver dragon. He planned to follow suit and threaten it. F***CK. Are you crazy? Seeing this, Wang Yu hurriedly rushed forward and snatched the bow and arrow from Liao Yuan's hand. "What are you doing?" Liao Yuan's pretense was forcibly interrupted by Wang Yu, and he asked, somewhat puzzled, "Are you stupid? Wang Yu said angrily. These two dragons are guards. Really? How do you know? Liao Yuan asked. It's common sense. Wang Yu pointed at the silver dragon and said, this is an important place in the dragon castle, so there will naturally be guards. These two dragons are almost identical in color and size, and they're standing upright. Of course, they're guards. Liao Yuan was stunned again. The silver dragon guard didn't seem to be interested in the little tricks of Wang Yu and Wang Yu. Instead, it calmly stared at them and said, this is an important place for dragons. Unauthorized people are not to come near. We're not unauthorized people. Liao Yuan hurriedly took out the invitation and handed it to the silver dragon guard. The silver dragon guard casually glanced at the invitation and said, you're late. Chapter 1547. What? Liao Yuan asked gloomily. The silver dragon guard said expressionlessly, a team of warriors has already entered. You're too late. F***CK. Liao Yuan and the others looked disappointed. Sure enough, this quest was a two-way street. And just as Liao Yuan was most worried about, this quest was not a competition of strength, but the speed at which both parties advanced. Their group had rushed over so much, but in the end, they were still a step too late. Please go back. The silver dragon guard said again, this is the dragon's territory. Unauthorized people are not allowed to wander around here. With that, the two silver dragon guards took a step forward and glared at the group. It seemed like they would start a fight if there was any disagreement. Liao Yuan and the others were shocked. They kept retreating and walked out of the castle reluctantly. It made sense. They had spent so much money to teleport to Dragon Island and spent so much time to get to the giant dragon castle, but they were rejected at the door. One could imagine how they were feeling now. Even Wang Yu felt a little unhappy. Even though the success or failure of this mission had nothing to do with Wang Yu still stood at the door regretfully and did not move. Nilga, let's go. Liao Yuan was afraid that Wang Yu would get into a conflict with the two guards. He quickly waved at Wang Yu, who was standing still, and said, it's fine if you can't go in. Let's go back and have a drink. Wait. Unexpectedly, Wang Yu waved his hand and took out a token from his backpack. He waved it in front of the silver dragon guards and said, please give us a chance. The AI of the two silver dragon guards was obviously not low. When they saw the token in Wang Yu's hand, their eyes immediately popped out. After they confirmed the token, they quickly put their heads on the ground and said respectfully, please wait for a moment. I'll report to Elder Manda right away. With that, the silver dragon guard got up, turned around, pushed open the golden stone door, and ran in. The other golden silver dragon said eagerly, please rest for a while. If you have any requests, just tell us. No requests. Wang Yu casually replied, and then walked back to the team as if nothing had happened. Liao Yuan and the others were all stunned when they saw this. Damn it, that's a silver dragon guard, one of the 3 high-ranked giant dragons on the Dragon Island. Just by looking at the thing in Wang Yu's hand, he was scared to this extent. Just what kind of background did this guy have? How could he be so strange? Big Brother Iron Ox, what did you show them just now? Adorable Tong Tong asked the question that was on everyone's mind. Wang Yu said calmly, it's nothing. It's just the token of Dragon Emperor Dales. Dragon Emperor Dales? Hearing what Wang Yu said, everyone was stunned. The Fruit Knight frowned and said, as far as I know, Dragon Emperor Dales is a god-tier boss with the title of the strongest. He's always been secretive. How'd you get his token? Him. Wang Yu laughed coldly and said, he's my follower, heir. Hearing what Wang Yu said, the ladies were speechless. They didn't know how to respond. Dragon Emperor Dales was the strongest person in the world. In this world of rebirth, other than the system guards, there was almost no one who could match him. How could such a powerful being be a player's follower? No matter how strong you are, you can't talk nonsense like this. At this moment, the ladies' feelings were exactly the same as Liao Yuan's just now. We asked you seriously, but you actually talk nonsense. What's the point of chatting? Hee hee. Seeing the expressions on the ladies' faces, Wang Yu still didn't explain anything. His reason was the same as before. Since no one believed him, explaining would be a waste of breath. Kaboom! Just as the few of them were talking, suddenly, the two golden stone doors that were initially closed opened. Immediately after, two rows of giant dragons rushed out from the inside. Like a formation, they stood on both sides of Wang Zheng and the rest. The two sides of the dragon's huge bodies were still very intimidating. Liao Yuan and the others saw such a big scene and almost peed their pants. Even Wang Yu just stared at the door, ready for battle. Yes, battle preparation. One couldn't blame Wang Yu for being too sensitive, but the scene was really too big, far beyond Wang Yu's expectations. Originally, Wang Yu thought that, as the Dragon Emperor, Dale still had to have some face. Therefore, after the Silver Dragon Guards went in, they would definitely not reject them. But this scene was really unexpected for Wang Yu. One had to know that the Dragon Emperor Dales had been framed by his people and locked in a small black house for so many years. Even if these giant dragons were here to capture Dales, Wang Yu had nothing to say. However, at this moment, 4 or 5 tall and skinny middle-aged men, wearing robes of different colors, walked out from behind the giant dragons. They followed the 2 Silver Dragon Guards and walked in front of Wang Yu. These 4 tall and skinny middle-aged men looked very serious, and their aura was also very strong. One look, and one could tell that they were not ordinary people. Walking in front of Wang Yu, one of the middle-aged men in the blue robe looked up and down at Wang Yu, then turned around and asked the silver giant dragon, "Just now, the Dragon Emperor's token belongs to him?" "Elder Manda," the Silver Dragon Guard hurriedly said respectfully, "Yes, it belongs to him." "Warrior, can you show me the token in your hand?" The middle-aged man in the blue robe, called Elder Manda, asked Wang Yu very politely. Of course, Elder Manda spoke politely, but there was a trace of suspicion in his tone. Obviously, if Wang Yu's token was real, it would be fine. If it was fake, Wang Yu would probably be in trouble this time. Sure, Wang Yu took out the token again and handed it to Elder Manda. Elder Manda took Wang Yu's token and looked at it for a moment. His expression changed slightly, and he handed the token to the people beside him. They studied it for a full half a minute and finally came to the conclusion that it was real. It's really the Emperor's token. After confirming the authenticity of the token, the middle-aged men immediately burst into tears. It was as if they had found their father who had been missing for many years. Especially Elder Manda. After handing the token to Wang Yu, he excitedly pulled Wang Yu's hand and asked, "Lord Warrior, do you know where the Emperor is now?" "I don't know." Wang Yu shook his head and said, "It wasn't easy for him to regain his freedom. Who knows where he's enjoying himself now?" "The Emperor has regained his freedom?" Elder Manda asked in surprise when he heard this. "That's right," Wang Yu said very casually. "He became my follower, so he was freed." "Follower?" Hearing Wang Yu's words, the few middle-aged men looked at each other and couldn't help but reveal a strange expression on their faces. Chapter 1548. Dragons were not a good-tempered race. This group of big lizards was notoriously irritable. In the early years, there were also many dragons who massacred cities because of a disagreement. Wang Yu was now saying that their Dragon King was his follower. Wasn't he courting death? Looking at the dragons around him, Wang Yu's words almost scared Liao Yuan out of his wits. "Are you kidding?" Wang Yu waved his hand and said, "No, I never make such jokes." Although the dragons were unwilling to believe Wang Yu's words, it turned out that there was no other way for Dales to escape imprisonment except for the method Wang Yu said. This was the system's setting, and even a god-tier boss could not escape this fate. Wang Yu's Dragon King's token was definitely genuine, so what he said would naturally not be false. At this time, the group of middle-aged men whispered and discussed for a while. Finally, the middle-aged man named Manda stepped forward and respectfully said to Wang Yu, "Since you're the master of our king, then we dragons are willing to listen to your orders." "What? What did you say?" As soon as Manda said this, Wang Yu did not say anything, but Liao Yuan, who was on the side, almost jumped up in shock. Dragons, the most powerful race in the game, were willing to listen to Wang Yu's orders. Liao Yuan could not believe his ears. Unexpectedly, Wang Yu waved his hand and said, Dales and I are just ordinary friends. I accepted him as a follower just to let him out. There is no real master-servant relationship. You don't have to be like this. No good, you must be joking. These are dragons. Seeing that Wang Yu casually refused the dragon's application to recognize him as their master, Liao Yuan was even more confused. What was a joke? This was a joke. He refused the dragons, such a powerful race, to recognize him as their master. God knew what Wang Yu was thinking. No. Wang Yu waved his hand and smiled calmly, as if he was rejecting a gold coin. Wang Yu's attitude made everyone admire him from the bottom of their hearts. Of course, it wasn't that Wang Yu didn't want to take over the dragons, but he really couldn't. This was because Wang Yu was a righteous person. Now that he had received the reward for rescuing Dales, he was naturally disdainful of taking advantage of the dragon's danger. What's more, if he really took over the dragons, this kind of behavior was basically equivalent to someone else using your name to buy a house, and you turned your back on them and claimed the house as your own. If Wang Yu really took over the dragons, Dales would go berserk and directly draw a line with Wang Yu. At that time, even if Wang Yu had the Dragon King's decree, it would be useless. One had to know that the game was about balance. It was impossible for the system to casually hand over such a powerful race to a player. This group of middle-aged people must have set up a trap. The game Rebirth was full of traps, and the quests were a test of the player's humanity. Small advantages could be taken, but they must not be greedy. This was the bloody experience that Wang Yu had learned from playing games for so long and being tricked by NPCs. Hermit said that Wang Yu was born with insufficient charm, and the quests he took were more difficult than others. How could there be such an easy thing at this time? Sure enough, seeing that Wang Yu refused the invitation, Manda and the others let out a sigh of relief and quickly said, "In that case, we won't force you, warrior. However, we, the dragons, will always be your friend." System notification. You have obtained the title Friend of Dragons. Dragon's reputation plus 100. Dragon's honor plus 100. Dragon's favorability plus 50. Currently admired Friend of Dragons. Title, Dragon Halo. Dragon's favorability plus 100. The effect of this Dragon Halo seemed quite useless. It did not add any attributes and only added favorability. Other than Dragon Island, this thing would not work anywhere else. However, it was better than nothing. At the very least, with this title, the Silver Dragon Guards would not chase him away like before. After seeing the title, Wang Yu asked with a smile, "What will happen if I accept the dragon's request to recognize me as their master?" "Huh." Manda smiled and said, "Our Emperor Dales will definitely see you as an enemy. At that time, the dragon race will also hunt you down endlessly. Don't you feel guilty for deceiving me like this?" Wang Yu asked, wiping away a cold sweat. Although he knew this was the case, Wang Yu still had some lingering fear when the NPC said this. "No." Manda smiled and said, "This is our duty. Did you see that? Now you know how shameless game designers are. They actually let NPCs make deceiving people as a profession. Were these things? Fortunately, Wang Yu is meticulous. If it were someone else, they would have gotten into big trouble. At this time, Wang Yu went straight to the point. "I won't say much nonsense. The reason why I took out the Dragon King's token is because I have something to ask of you. Warrior Iron Ox, you said that seeing the Dragon King's token is like seeing the Emperor. Your business is our business." Manda patted his chest and promised. It seemed that this old man was very happy that Wang Yu did not take over the dragons. At this time, his tone, when talking to Wang Yu, was different, of course. It might also be related to Wang Yu's sudden increase of 150 points of favorability with the dragons. What was the Wang Yu of the past? The Dragon Slayer. The dragons' favorability was negative. Now, it had directly turned into admiration. It was reasonable for the dragon's attitude towards Wang Yu to change greatly. Wang Yu pointed at Liao Yuan and the others and said, "My friend and I came from afar to do a quest. Now, Elder Manda, please give us another chance." "Oh? What quest?" Manda asked in confusion. "Elder Manda asked you what quest." Wang Yu turned his head to look at Liao Yuan and asked, This works. If not for the fact that they were in public, Liao Yuan really wanted to kneel down and kowtow to Wang Yu on the spot. Damn, what kind of awesome person was this? Liao Yuan had played games for so long, but he had never seen such a thing. Going through the back door, pulling strings, forcefully continuing the quest. Could this be done in the game? Why not? Wang Yu said proudly. I used to spend money to buy quests. You're really awesome. Liao Yuan sincerely gave Wang Yu a thumbs up. It's all because the game has taught you well. Wang Yu's face was full of vicissitudes when he heard this. Once upon a time, Wang Yu was also a pure young man. After several embellishments, he had now become a wily old fox. This is my invitation. Liao Yuan walked in front of Manda and handed over his invitation, the Demon God Assembly Blueprint. After seeing Liao Yuan's invitation, Manda said with some difficulty, someone has already taken this quest. If I hand it over to you again, I'm afraid it's a little against the rules. Liao Yuan looked at Wang Yu in disappointment. Chapter 1549. As she spoke, Manda rubbed her fingers at Wang Yu. Manda's meaning was obvious. Rules could be broken, but they had to pay a certain price. Seeing this, Wang Yu turned to Liao Yuan and said, how many gold coins do you have on you? Is he asking us for money? Liao Yuan asked in surprise when he saw Manda's gesture. To be honest, this was the first time Liao Yuan had seen such a strange thing after playing games for so long. An NPC was blatantly asking for bribes. There was no King justice in this world. Of course, Wang Yu glanced at Liao Yuan and said, most people don't even have the chance to give gifts. Hurry up and give me the money. Is 10,000 enough? Hearing Wang Yu's words, Liao Yuan asked carefully. Enough. Wang Yu nodded. Manda only asked Wang Yu to do something. She did not say much. She just wanted to do it casually. Okay. Liao Yuan quickly took out a big bag of money and quietly handed it to Wang Yu. Wang Yu took out 1,000 gold coins from it and stuffed it into Manda's hand. Manda was also a homebody dragon who had never seen the world. 1,000 gold coins made her smile. She took the gold coins from Wang Yu's hand with a smile and pointed at the inside. Warrior, please come in. As he spoke, the dragons around Wang Yu and the others spread out to make a path. Under the lead of Manda and the other dragons, Wang Yu calmly led Liao Yuan and the others into the palace. The dragon's palace was as tacky as the gate. As soon as they entered the palace, the jewels and treasures rushed towards them. The golden light was so dazzling that it was breathtaking. Needless to say, this extremely tacky stench of money really had a different kind of temperament. At this time, there was already a team in the palace. When they saw Wang Yu and the others being welcomed into the palace by so many dragons, they were surprised. Meow, what was the background of this group of people? How could they make the dragons personally come out to welcome them? Liao Yuan and the others were filled with curiosity when they saw the team that had arrived early. This team was definitely the one that had beaten the infant golden dragon to the point that it didn't even dare to show its face, as Anshuan had said. Moreover, this team had arrived at the giant dragon castle faster than their own team with Wang Yu. It was evident that their strength was extraordinary. Seeing that the players from the two teams were sizing each other up, Manda walked forward and introduced to Wang Yu, honorable warriors from the Heroes Continent. This is the warrior from Sky Star City. Sky Star City? When Wang Yu and the others heard this, they were all stunned. Meow, these guys are actually the best. When the people on the other side heard that Wang Yu and the others were from the Heroes Continent, the curious expressions on their faces immediately turned into indifference and arrogance. Koreans had always been like this, especially toward local players. They would inexplicably have a sense of superiority, although no one knew where this sense of superiority came from. It was very unpleasant. Wow, so handsome. My name is Adorable Tong Tong. Can we get to know each other? Just as Wang Yu was frowning and sizing them up, Adorable Tong Tong, who was behind Liao Yuan, suddenly rushed to the front of the team with his hands on his chest and asked the leading player on the other side with starry eyes. Seeing that Adorable Tong Tong ran up so excitedly, Wang Yu asked Liao Yuan in puzzlement, "Is he very handsome?" When creating a character in Rebirth, one could adjust the appearance of the character. With an 80% adjustment rate and a powerful face molding system, it was not difficult to adjust the appearance of an author, let alone an ordinary handsome guy. Therefore, other than those players who liked to hunt for novelty, there were very few ugly people in the game. Adorable Tong Tong's reaction to that person made Wang Yu feel a little puzzled. He's not handsome. Liao Yuan curled his lips and said, but girls always like this kind. It could be seen that Liao Yuan was not in a good mood. After all, the girl in his team was so attentive to someone else. Even if the two of them had no relationship, he would still feel uncomfortable. However, when the Korean player saw the excited, adorable Tong Tong, he looked at her with some disgust and turned his head away impatiently. Wow, so cool. Seeing that the Korean player ignored him, adorable Tong Tong not only did not get angry, but became even more excited. F***CK. Do you have to be so dramatic? Wang Yu was speechless. Isn't it that dramatic? Liao Yuan also said helplessly, I finally understand why the Korean players have a sense of superiority over the local players. What do you know? Adorable Tong Tong rolled her eyes at Liao Yuan and said excitedly, this is fashion. Fashion is being cold-shouldered? Wang Yu was puzzled. Nyoga. Adorable Tong blushed at Wang Yu's words. You won't have any friends if you speak so straightforwardly. Wang Yu spread his hands helplessly. As a middle-aged man, Wang Yu really couldn't understand the matters of young people. Hey, my name is Jin Rawakai. You look familiar. What's your name? While they were talking, the burly man who was about the same size as Wang Yu walked up to Wang Yu and asked in fluent Mandarin, but his tone was very stiff. Me? Wang Yu wasn't a narrow-minded person. Naturally, he wouldn't be displeased by the other party's tone. Instead, he pointed at himself and asked, Yes, it's you, Jin Rihua said. Iron Ox. Wang Yu replied calmly. Iron Ox. Jin Rihua froze for a moment when he heard the name. He then turned to his comrade and said, Captain, he said his name is Iron Ox. It really is him. When the player heard Jin Rawakai's name, the corner of his mouth curled up slightly, revealing a smug smile. Although Wang Yu was a noob, he still had some fame in the gaming circle. After all, Huaxia was also a country with a very high level of esports. The champion team of the national server would naturally be noticed by the experts of other countries. It was reasonable for this group of Korean players to know Wang Yu. After that person learned of Wang Yu's identity, he quickly walked up to Wang Yu and said, My name is Moonless Blossoms. I heard that you are the champion of the Huaxia Professional League. What did he say? Wang Yu asked Jin Rawakai in confusion. Jin Rawakai acted as a responsible translator and translated the captain's words to Wang Yu. That's right. Wang Yu nodded. Being the champion of the national server was an honor, especially when he said that he was the champion team in front of foreign players. Wang Yu would feel a sense of belonging and mission. He doesn't look like much. That person laughed coldly and said, My name is Moonless Blossoms. Remember my name. I will be the nightmare of you Chinese players in the future. Wang Yu was speechless. What a low-end way of showing off. If it were Qiwanjin, the only person who would use such a method would probably be to place one's pride. However, seeing that Moonless Blossoms was so arrogant, Wang Yu also threw a tantrum for once. Chapter 1550. Hearing Wang Yu's words, Moonless Bloom sneered. Arrogant. Same to you. Wang Yu smiled calmly. This kid was really shameless. He was the one who provoked him first, but he scolded him for being arrogant. He really deserved a beating. Although Wang Yu was kind-hearted, it was not difficult to see that Wang Yu was also a decisive guy from how he chased people for a few streets. If they were not in the dragon's lair, Wang Yu would let him know what a nightmare was now. Warriors, stop arguing. Just as Wang Yu and Moonless Bloom were chatting, Manda came over and said, Since everyone is so tense, we dragons will give you this chance. Oh, what do you mean? Wang Yu's eyes lit up, and he asked with narrowed eyes. Manda looked at Wang Yu and asked, Why did you two teams come to the Dragon Castle? The blueprint of the godly equipment. Without waiting for Wang Yu to answer, Liao Yuan said from behind. The godly equipment, as the name suggested, was the equipment of the Protoss and Nephilim. In the words of the players, it was a divine artifact. It was said that during the ancient war of gods and demons, a large number of gods and demons died in battle. Countless pieces of gods and demons' equipment were scattered in the world, and they were called epic and legendary equipment. At that time, countless treasure hunters went to the battlefield of gods and demons to try their luck. As a race in this world that loved to collect treasures the most, the dragons were no exception. With power that was no less than that of gods and demons, the dragons collected many good things in the battlefield of gods and demons. Later, because of the Dark Invasion, the dragons were forced by the martial god to offer all those divine artifacts. However, a set of godly equipment's blueprint was left in the dragon's lair. The dragons were powerful. Although they had achievements in magic and martial arts, they knew nothing about equipment forging. The giant lizards were lazy, greedy, and arrogant. Even though they knew that the blueprint was a god and devil equipment, they were too lazy to move it, were unwilling to part with the precious materials, and were disdainful of learning smithing art from other races. Therefore, the blueprint was completely buried in the dragons. Liao Yuan received an invitation from the dragons because he completed a mission. That was why he was qualified to come to the Dragon Island to fight for the blueprint of the divine demonic equipment. Moonless Blossom's group was the same as Burning Prairie. They had come all the way here because of this matter. After all, it was a fiend god equipment. As long as he found a good blacksmith, the blueprint would be able to create a complete set of divine equipment. It was easy to imagine the attributes of a divine tool set. It was no wonder that Liao Yuan had risked his life to come to the giant dragon castle. Not bad, Manda nodded. The blueprint of this fiend god equipment is rather special. Although it's a set, there's only one copy. It can't be separated. Logically speaking, the warriors of Sky Star City arrived first, so this trial qualification should be given to them. However, Lord Ironox is a friend of our Emperor, so we plan to make an exception and give the trial qualification to your two teams. As everyone knew, although the players in Rebirth did not have simultaneous interpretation, NPCs had their own simultaneous interpretation function. Although Wang Yu and the others heard it in Mandarin, it was their own language that was transmitted to the ears of Moonless Blossom and the others. Hearing Manda's words, Moonless Blossom and the others immediately revealed angry expressions. They looked at Wang Yu and the others even more fiercely. Thinking about it, this trial was originally for a team. As long as they passed the trial, they would be able to obtain the blueprint. Now that there was an additional team of competitors, it was not as simple as passing the trial. They had to do better than their competitors. Moonless Blossom and the others were naturally very confident in their own strength, but the sudden appearance of such a variable made them feel like they had a fishbone stuck in their throats, and they felt extremely uncomfortable. It was unknown if Manda had said that on purpose, but she had directly provoked the anger of Moonless Blossom and the others. As Manda spoke, a 3D simulation map appeared on the table in front of Wang Yu and the others. Manda pointed at the map and said, "This is the Dragon's Canyon. There are two entrances in the east and west. The Dark Demon Dragon Ada's lair is in the north. The blueprint of the Fiend God equipment is there." At this point, Manda pointed at the southernmost exit and said, "After you successfully obtain the map, you will be chased by Ada's minions in the Dragon's Canyon. As long as you can successfully walk out of the southern exit, you will pass the trial." As she said that, Manda paused for a moment and continued, "Of course, there is only one copy of the blueprint. Only the team with the blueprint in their hands is qualified to obtain the blueprint. Do you understand?" "Yes, understood." The two teams nodded in unison. In fact, the trial was not complicated at all. To put it simply, they had to kill Adas and snatch the blueprint. Then, they would break through the encirclement and defeat the opponent. They could then walk out of the Dragon's Canyon from the exit. Uncomplicated quests were usually more difficult. Not to mention that the Dark Demon Dragon Adas did not sound like someone to be trifled with. Just the latter part alone made people feel a little uneasy. No matter how powerful the NPCs were, they they were still NPCs. The most dangerous ones were naturally player opponents. The two teams that could walk from the Dragon Island's teleportation point to the giant dragon castle would not be too weak. Moreover, they had to avoid the ambush of the player opponents during the chase. This had more than doubled the difficulty. Thinking of this, Moonless Blossom and the others increasingly hated the team in front of them that was causing trouble for them. "Nyoga, can you do it?" Liao Yuan said worriedly. "These guys are not to be trifled with. Wasn't that right?" Although Moonless Blossom and the others were arrogant, it was not that they did not have the right to be arrogant. The infant golden dragon was a little timid, but it was still a level 100 boss. To be able to beat the infant golden dragon to the point that it did not dare to reveal its head in the water, their strength was obviously at the professional level. Moreover, with Wang Yu around, everyone's advancing speed was already extremely fast. However, Moonless Blossom and the others had arrived at the giant dragon castle one step ahead of them. It was clear that these guys were much stronger than they had imagined. Putting aside the fact that there was a terrifying opponent like the dark demon dragonatas in the Dragon Canyon. Even if Liao Yuan and the others fought one-on-one with Moonless Blossom and the others in the arena, they would not be confident. Liao Yuan and the others had defeated professional players a few times. However, after following Wang Yu all the way here, they now clearly understood the gap between themselves and top-tier professional players. Of course, if they were competing against other professional players, they would more or less retain some of their confidence. However, these guys just had to compete against Wang Yu. As a result, their previous confidence had long since disappeared. Now that they were facing an expert like Moonless Blossom, it was inevitable that they would feel very diffident. After all, in the eyes of Liao Yuan and the others, top-tier professional players were on the same level as Wang Yu, Moonless Blossom, and the others were clearly such top-tier experts. One Wang Yu is already so frightening. If a party of Wang Yus was already so terrifying. Chapter 1551. Facing the worries of Liao Yuan and the others, Wang Yu only said casually, "It's nothing. Brother, are you kidding me?" Liao Yuan broke down. Now, Liao Yuan finally understood. Not only did Wang Yu not take the boss seriously, he did not even treat the players as humans. How confident did this guy have to be so arrogant? They were facing a team of professional players. Could he be more serious? Hee. Wang Yu smiled and ignored Liao Yuan. At this time, Manda smiled and came over. She looked at Wang Yu and the others, then looked at Moonless Bloom and the others and said, "How is it? Is everyone ready?" "Yes." Moonless Bloom glared at Wang Yu and the others and raised his hand. "What about you?" Manda asked Liao Yuan. All right. Liao Yuan said, not knowing what to do. "All right, let's go in." Manda stretched out her finger and swiped it on the table. The map on the table suddenly split open, and a flash of light came out of the crack and covered the map. At this time, Manda suddenly put on a cunning expression and said, "Oh right, I forgot to say that it's very easy to get lost in the Dragon Canyon. Do you want to buy a map?" F***CK. Hearing Manda's words, Liao Yuan and Moonless Bloom revealed expressions of F***CK. Meow. This trip to Dragon Island had really broadened everyone's horizons. The NPCs here were all more sinister and cunning than the other. At this time, they were still thinking about doing business. What were these things? They were constantly squeezing the player's economy. Was this really good? Unfortunately, it was a quest. They couldn't do it without a map. If Manda dared to trick them like this, the trial later would definitely be even worse. If they got lost in the Dragon Canyon and lost the trial because of this, wouldn't it be terrible? "How much is the map?" Liao Yuan asked. 5,000 gold coins. Manda smiled and stretched out her hand. F***CK. Why don't you go rob someone? Liao Yuan collapsed. Although everyone wasn't short of money, selling a map at such a high price was clearly trying to take the players for fools. "Robbery is against the law. We're a proper game," Manda said shamelessly. F***CKU. Burning Prairie and Moonless Blossoms raised their middle fingers at Manda. Of course, they were all experts. Although 5,000 gold was not a small sum, they could still afford it. Moonless Bloom sighed and took out a bag of money, handing it to Manda. Manda took the bag and tossed a map to Moonless Bloom. We don't want it anymore. Liao Yuan was just about to fork out the money when Wang Yu suddenly interrupted Liao Yuan. Really? Manda glanced sideways at Wang Yu. Really? Wang Yu smiled and said, we don't need it. That's good. Have a safe journey, everyone. Manda smiled and waved her hand. The white light on the table instantly engulfed the two teams. Everyone felt the scene in front of them change. Wang Yu's team and Moonless Blossom's team appeared at the two entrances of the Dragon Canyon. At the same time, everyone received a system notification. System notice. You have accepted the quest Giant Dragon's Trial. Quest level. A quest content. Snatch the divine demonic armament blueprint from the dark demon dragon Ada's and safely escape the Dragon Canyon. Quest hint. In the Dragon Canyon, you will not lose EXP if you die. There's a 100% chance of dropping loot. Pay attention to your surroundings. Don't get ambushed. At the same time, a number appeared on the top of everyone's screen, 14. It was the number of players in the trial. Let's go. Hurry up. Don't let the people from the hero's continent beat us to it. After receiving the system notification, Golden Sunbloom shouted anxiously and rushed toward the nest of the dark demon dragon Ada's with his team. Don't rush. Moonless Bloom grabbed Golden Sunbloom, took out the map, glanced at it, and then pointed to the south. You're going in the wrong direction. We have to go this way. Is that so? Golden Sunbloom looked to the north, and then looked in the direction Moonless Bloom was pointing. He secretly exclaimed, no wonder Old Man Manda said it was easy to get lost. I thought it was north. You're right, Moonless Bloom said with a smile. It is indeed north, but we have to go south. South? Why? Aren't we going to snatch the blueprint? Golden Sunbloom was not the only one who was confused. The others were also confused. Of course we have to snatch the blueprint. Moonless Bloom touched his chin and said, but we don't have to fight with the monsters. After all, there is only one exit. I see. After hearing Moonless Bloom's words, everyone came to a realization. Meow. There was only one way out anyway. Why risk their lives with the monsters? Wouldn't it be better to block the exit and reap the benefits? The Dark Demon Dragon Ada's was also a boss, so it was definitely not too weak. Moreover, according to Manda, after Ada's died, there would be monsters coming to attack in groups. It was obvious that this trial was not easy. By the time the other party killed the boss, got rid of the monsters, and rushed to the exit, they would probably run out of replenishment potions and be at the end of their rope. Therefore, everyone just needed to conserve their energy at the entrance and wait for the Dark Demonic Dragon. Even if Wang Yu's group was not a match for the Dark Demonic Dragon Ada's, they still had the ability to cross the Dragon Island and beat the Dark Demonic Dragon half to death. When Wang Yu's group was annihilated, wouldn't it be nice for everyone to pick up the corpse? In short, waiting at the entrance was the best plan. On the other hand, as soon as Wang Yu's group entered the trial, they panicked. Liao Yuan shouted anxiously, Niogu, are you kidding? Why don't you want a map? We don't even know which entrance we are at now. Wang Yu looked around with a smile and said, we are at the east gate. Liao Yuan, who was shouting, immediately quieted down. He said in surprise, How do you know? Because there's a big stone over there. Wang Yu pointed to the stone not far away and said, when Manda showed the map just now, I used the camera elf to capture the map. Hee. I saved you 5,000 gold, and you're still shouting. Do you want to give me money? Capture the map? Hearing Wang Yu's words, Liao Yuan almost knelt down to Wang Yu. Meow. He could predict the future. This was a godly person. Liao Yuan said with sincere admiration. You knew that old thing Manda would cheat us. No. Wang Yu waved his hand and said, this is just experience. Experience? What kind of experience is this? Liao Yuan was confused again. All right, stop talking nonsense. Wang Yu waved his hand and said, let's go. As he said this, Wang Yu lifted his leg and walked north. Niogu, you're going the wrong way. Liao Yuan quickly pulled Wang Yu and smiled sinisterly. We should go south. I didn't expect someone as smart as you to make a mistake. Chapter 1552. This, hearing Wang Yu's words, Burning Prairie immediately quietened down. Wasn't that right? If he could think of something, others could definitely think of it as well. After all, the quest had to be completed, and the boss had to be defeated. If both parties wanted to take advantage of the situation, then there was basically no need to participate in the trial. Everyone just needed to find a place to hide and wait for the trial to end. At most, they would perish together. No one would be able to obtain the divine demonic equipment blueprint. When that happened, the ones who would have the last laugh would definitely not be the players, but the system NPCs. Thinking of this, Burning Prairie's admiration for Wang Yu deepened. It was not because of Wang Yu's powerful strength, nor was it because of Wang Yu's ability to anticipate the enemy's moves. It was because of Wang Yu's ability to maintain a clear mind at all times. One monk carried water to drink. 2 monks carried water to drink. The logic of the story was clear and easy to understand, but when it really came down to it, how many people would not be the stupid monk in the story? From this, it could be seen that Wang Yu could still maintain a clear mind in such a situation. It was truly admirable. The blueprint was the hardware, and the party who completed the quest had the upper hand. After all, the map of Dragon Canyon was not small. Even if there was only one exit, it was not easy to steal from others in such a large map. Just as Manda said, it was very easy to get lost in the terrain of Dragon Canyon. This was because this map was not a flat map. Instead, it was layered up and down, and the coordinates on the map seemed to be in a different dimension. Even with the map in hand, both teams were confused when they walked. Of course, for others, if they were not geographical engineers like Chun Xiang who could read topographic maps, it would be extremely difficult to walk on air. However, it was much easier for Wang Yu. There was no other reason. Wang Yu could fly. This was also why the flight skill or flight equipment was so precious. It could not be helped. He was just that shameless. No matter what kind of terrain or what kind of path, as long as he could confirm the direction, he would spread his wings and walk in a straight line in the air. God's view ignored all the paths that could not be taken. While Moonless Blossom and the others were stumbling around looking for an exit, Wang Yu had already brought Blazing Prairie and the others to the Dark Demon Dragon's lair. It had to be said that the Tenebrous Demonic Dragon was quite good at hiding so well. If not for the fact that Wang Yu had taken a screenshot of the map beforehand, he probably wouldn't have been able to find this so-called nest even if he circled around in the sky until the trial ended. The lair of the Dark Demonic Dragon, Ada's, was actually a huge cave hidden in the mountains. It was pitch black inside, without a single ray of light. Is it here? How terrifying! They followed Wang Yu all the way to the front of the cave. When the girls saw the dark cave, they instinctively felt a wave of fear. It was fortunate that they were in the game. If they were in real life, even if there were no monsters in the cave, it wouldn't be safe to go in with 2 men. It should be. Let's go in and take a look first. Liao Yuan said as he walked inside. Don't go in yet. Upon seeing this, Wang Yu hurriedly pulled him back. What now? Liao Yuan's face was blank. As the saying went, nothing ventured, nothing gained. Everyone was already at the entrance of the cave. Shouldn't they go in? You're an expert. Wang Yu curled his lips. There's something inside staring at us. Do you want to go in and die? There's something inside? Liao Yuan shielded his eyes with his hand and looked at the pitch-black cave. He couldn't help but ask, why can't I see anything? Is your eyesight better than mine? Liao Yuan was an archer. An archer's passive skill, Eagle Eye, could greatly improve their eyesight. Liao Yuan tried his best to look several times, but there was no light in the cave. He couldn't see anything at all. Wang Yu was just a grandmaster of combat. Wasn't it nonsense to say that he saw something inside? I told you that I saw it. Wang Yu rolled his eyes at Liao Yuan and asked, then how did you know? Liao Yuan and the others were confused again. If he didn't see it, did he smell it? Do you know how to feel? Wang Yu pointed at the cave entrance and said, there's a murderous aura inside. F*CK. Liao Yuan collapsed. It was a perfectly fine online novel. Why did it have to be so fantastical? Forget it. You wouldn't understand even if I told you. Wang Yu pointed inside and said, if you don't believe me, shoot a few arrows to explore the way. TCH. Although Liao Yuan didn't believe it verbally, Wang Yu's performance along the way was really amazing. At this time, when Wang Yu said that there was something staring at them inside, Liao Yuan didn't believe it, but he didn't dare to not believe it. It was better to believe it than not. Liao Yuan gritted his teeth, took out his bow, and knocked an arrow into the cave. Whoosh! Following the sound of air breaking, the arrow shot into the cave with a white light. Pooh! At the same time, Liao Yuan heard the sound of an arrow entering flesh. Hearing this sound, Liao Yuan was shocked. Really? There's really something inside watching us. Nonsense. You think I'm bullshitting you? Wang Yu pulled Liao Yuan behind him and said, Tank, go ahead. Everyone else, get ready to attack the boss. Liao Yuan has already pulled the aggro. That thing will come out soon. Okay, got it. Now, the girls in Liao Yuan's party were completely convinced by Wang Yu. They subconsciously regarded Wang Yu as the #1 commander. After receiving Wang Yu's order, adorable pupil took out her totem and smashed it on the ground, giving everyone a buff. Beautiful enchantress's figure flickered, and she disappeared. Sisterly took out her staff and began to gather magic. Tian Xiang threw the umbrella in her hand up, giving everyone a HP recovery aura. Rumble, rumble. The players outside the cave were all ready. They heard a series of heavy footsteps, and a huge figure rushed out of the cave. The monster looked very similar to the Earth Demon Dragon. The only difference was that this monster was a full size bigger than the Earth Demon Dragon. This guy looked like a wild boar, and there were 2 huge fangs in its mouth that curved towards the sky. The monster's body was surrounded by a circle of black aura, like rising flames. The visual effect was very dazzling. Wang Yu cast a detect spell, and the monster's information appeared in front of him. Dark Demon Dragon Idas, level 85, Dark Old Boss, Elite, HP, 1000000 MP, 2000000 skills, Brutal Charge, Earth Stomp, Earth Armor Innate Ability, Dark Flames background story, an anomaly among dragons. Although it is a direct descendant, it was exiled to the Dragon Canyon because of its strange appearance. It is the most powerful existence in the Dragon Canyon. Damn, so this is what a dark demon dragon looks like. Seeing Idas's attributes, Wang Yu and the others could not help but let out a long sigh of relief. Chapter 1553. There was a fundamental difference between dragons and land dragons. Compared to a real dragon, a land dragon was at best a 4-legged snake. Draconic might, draconic magic, and other top-notch talents of the dragon race could only be reflected in a small part of a land dragon's body. Most importantly, a drake did not have the ability to breathe and fly, so its combat power was greatly reduced. Roar! After the dark demon dragon crawled out of the cave, it roared at the sky. It was a simple entrance. Then, the dark demon dragon stomped on the ground with its front hooves like a cow. It charged forward and collided with Liao Yuan, who was behind Wang Yu. Burning Prairie's team wasn't weak. Although their teammates were girls, they weren't weak. Seeing the dark demon dragon charging at them, the Fruit Knight lowered her head and used charge to meet it head-on. Boom! There was a loud noise as the Fruit Knight and the monster collided. The monster was stopped by the Fruit Knight's charge, and the Fruit Knight was forced to take a few steps back. 1722 at this time. A small number floated up, and the HP bar above the Fruit Knight's head dropped a little. 1722 was not a lot for the Fruit Knight, who had more than 100,000 HP. No one paid much attention to it, but when Wang Yu saw this, he could not help but be surprised. When holding a shield, the skill mechanics of a knight and a shield warrior were almost the same. The only difference was a talent block bar. Regardless of whether it was a shield warrior's shield or a paladin's light shield, they were both weapons and not defensive equipment. As long as the shield did not shatter, the Fruit Knight would not receive any damage. However, the Fruit Knight had lost almost 2,000 HP when he blocked it with his shield. It was a little strange. The Fruit Knight was a player. Although he was a tank, the stun time for his skills was slightly longer. Compared to the clumsy, dark demon dragon, he was quite agile. Moreover, the Fruit Knight was not a bad player. In Rebirth, the most basic way to evaluate a player was to use the skill's prerequisites and the stun time to link the skills together. Since the Fruit Knight was an expert, it was only natural that he was good at combining his skills. Colliding with the Dark Demon Dragon, the Fruit Knight was forced to take 2 steps back. The lady rolled backward to get up to offset the stun from the charge. Then, she patted the light shield on her right hand with her left hand, and the light shield, which had dimmed from the Dark Demon Dragon's attack, lit up again. At the same time, the Fruit Knight raised her shield and took a step forward, smashing it on the Dark Demon Dragon's head. Holy Shield Impact. This skill was similar to a Shield Warrior's Shield Bash. Both used their shields to smash their targets into a fainted and controlled state. The only difference was that Holy Shield Bash dealt a mixture of physical and magical damage, so its attack range was slightly longer. 2784 2780 42 damage numbers floated up from the Dark Demon Dragon and the Fruit Knight's heads respectively. A mosquito coil floated up from the Dark Demon Dragon's head. The team's teamwork was quite good. As the Dark Demon Dragon was a beast-type monster, it had a higher resistance to control effects. If they waited for the tank to stun the monster before attacking, the Dark Demon Dragon would definitely break free from control. Therefore, while the Fruit Knight was stunned, Wang Yu and Beauty Enchantress had already rushed forward. The Fruit Knight stunned the Dark Demon Dragon, and Wang Yu and Beauty Enchantress attacks landed in front of the Dark Demon Dragon. Because Wang Yu had to protect Liao Yuan, he was relatively far away from the Dark Demon Dragon. Beauty Enchantress was an assassin, so she was the master of sneaking up and stabbing people. When she attacked, she was naturally closer to the Dark Demon Dragon. Pucci, Beauty Enchantress, stabbed the Dark Demon Dragon with her sword. 34457 2 damage numbers floated up from the Dark Demon Dragon and Beauty Enchantress heads. The health bar above the Dark Demon Dragon's head moved slightly, and Beauty Enchantress turned into a white light on the spot. F***CK. So shameless? Seeing this scene, Wang Yu was shocked. Meow. No wonder he felt weird from the beginning. This guy actually knew damage reflect. Wasn't this shameless? As a Grandmaster of Combat, Wang Yu did not have much health. One kick from the Dark Demon Dragon was enough to kill him several times over. Just as Wang Yu was about to kick the tenebrous demonic dragon, at the critical moment, Wang Yu twisted his waist and withdrew his thunder stomp that had already kicked the tenebrous demonic dragon's head. Then, he casually pressed the tenebrous demonic dragon's head and used the momentum to do a backflip before landing firmly on the ground. F***CK. After landing, Wang Yu secretly wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. He had almost died. F***CK. So shameless? At this time, Liao Yuan and the others also shouted. Of course, Liao Yuan and the others were not talking about the Dark Demon Dragon, but about Wang Yu. In the game, canceling a skill was not a difficult technique. Any player with a bit of skill could do it. However, Wang Yu did not cancel a skill at all. Instead, he used his own skill to retract the skill. This was a bit shocking. This kind of operation was like throwing a fireball and then retracting it. It did not make sense at all. Roar! While everyone was still in a daze, the Dark Demon Dragon dispelled the stun effect and rushed forward, charging at the Fruit Knight. The Fruit Knight hurriedly blocked with his giant shield. Bang! With a loud sound, the Fruit Knight's shield was smashed on the spot, and his entire body flew backward. Brutal charge! The Dark Demon Dragon's aggro was still on Liao Yuan. After knocking the Fruit Knight away, the Dark Demon Dragon did not stop there, charging straight at Liao Yuan. Seeing this, the others panicked to fight or not to fight. If they did not fight, Liao Yuan would definitely die. Once Liao Yuan died, the quest would be meaningless. Fight! How the hell were they supposed to fight the Dark Demon Dragon? The players would lose as much HP as the Dark Demon Dragon. This shameless bastard had 10 million HP, and Wang Yu and the others didn't even have a tenth of its HP. Even if this beast just stood there and didn't move, They couldn't afford to trade their HP with it. The dark demon dragon's body was huge, and it ran very quickly. In the blink of an eye, it had reached Liao Yuan. At this time, Liao Yuan did not hide anymore. He slammed his hands on the ground. Clang! With a mechanical sound, two rays of light, one blue and one black, lit up. Two figures appeared in front of Liao Yuan. Boom! The dark demon dragon and the two figures collided, causing dust to fly into the air. When the dust settled, the two mechanical beauties appeared in front of Liao Yuan. Mechanical hunter. The emphasis was on the word mechanical. Obviously, these two mechanical beauties were Liao Yuan's real trump card. What a show-off! Seeing Liao Yuan's two mechanical pets, Wang Yu was dumbfounded. This Liao Yuan looked handsome on the outside, but deep down, he was actually so coquettish. Not only were his teammates female, even his pets were female. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.